Benny, bring me everyone.
What do you mean, everyone?
Everyone!
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Let me explain something to you. I am not Mr. Lebowski. You're Mr. Lebowski. I'm the dude.
No one is to stone anyone until I blow this whistle.
You can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Zedos Game Podcast. Once again, 101. We made it past 1 plus 100.
Did we have an episode 0?
Yes, we did. That was
We did.
that was like the test episode. It's online, but it's essentially a test episode. I do that with everything. But yeah, along on this podcast, we have a newcomer. I'll let the newcomer introduce himself. You know,
It's Richard Edwards here. I've it's been a long time, actually.
yeah. So, did you do this once before?
Oh, he's never been on with Zedos Gang.
Okay.
Not
He's only
Zedos,
ever-
I went on
He went on Ken's one.
Right, yeah, that's right. Ken Talks Films, yeah. When's he starting that up again, by the way?
I don't think he is until after his wedding, to be honest.
Right, gotcha.
So I think he's welcome to drop in on our one and stuff. But yeah, in terms of doing his own one,
Sorry to interject, but I even wrote down the words. I'm glad to be back. I remember I went to Joe's house to do one recording because I kept banging my head on the microphone.
Yes, yeah, I did. I knew you'd been here before. He's been here before. Yeah. So yeah,
So the early ones.
so he is on one.
Been
He's
too
on one
long.
episode. It's one episode.
Oh.
I'm gonna track it down and see which one it is. Yeah. Well, welcome back. Welcome back, Richard. And we also
Good to
have
be back. Good.
we have Neil as always.
I'm back.
and also as always, Mr. Satchland Productions, Mr. Allari.
Yo.
Nice. Okay, we'll go straight into it. What have we got on the itinerary?
Okay, so first up. Okay, recently been brought to light, Sigourney Weaver has confirmed that director, writer, producer Walter Hill has written a 50-page treatment for an Alien 5. She confirmed that about 2 years ago, Hill approached her with a brand new take on the alien mythos from a script, idea and a script. And obviously, because Ridley Scott's got full control of it right now, this thing wasn't going to get into development anytime soon. One could think that this was happening just before the Fox merger with Disney. So Fox were just throwing out any IP around then to try and get it greenlit so executives could get money, get paid basically. Walter Hill, he wrote Alien 3, or one of the drafts of Alien 3. I think he's credited on the actual film, even though they might have used parts of his elements. He was also the final writer for the original Alien, and he's been the producer on every single Alien film that has ever been made. He's a director as well, but he never ventured into sci-fi and stuff. He was more an 80s action movie kind of guy. That
Did he do the Warriors?
Yeah, that's right. He did the Warriors. He did 48 Hours, both 48 Hours to be honest. Streets of Fires, Brewster's Millions, and most recently Bullet to the Head with Sylvester Stallone and Christian Slater. Christian Slater's in that movie, right? Yeah.
Is he?
Yeah, he is. He shows up, and of course,
Close
Red
enough.
Heat, and Red Heat with
Red Heat.
with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So this guy's been around the biz, etc. It kind of makes me curious. Walter Hill writing an Alien 5. To be honest, I don't know what context or if anything, how it would have went down. I'm assuming he wasn't going to direct it himself because he's not. If he wanted to direct an Alien film, he would have done it years ago when Scott wasn't in the frame. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, so many people had a chance to to do Ripley's story properly
Yeah.
after Aliens. I don't. Alien 3 is I appreciate that film now than I did when I did. Alien 4, no. Um, in terms of what Ridley Scott wants to do with it, I think it's valid because he's exploring something that he wants to do with it, which doesn't hurt the mythology. Anything past Alien, I think, is fair game. In terms of how it's set up, I just didn't trust Neil Blomkamp because I only like one of his films.
Yeah, this one wouldn't have been that treatment. It wouldn't have had anything to do with that vision.
I know.
But yeah,
which leads me to go again. I think you either need to recast Ripley or move on to someone else, or Newt. Forget about Newt. About it's done. Their story's been told the best way. They survive. They go home. End of story. If you like to include Alien 3, then Newt's dead. Spoiler.
I feel like with these movies, there's always a tendency to try and leave an element of the unknown, try and leave the cinema goer feeling like when they go home, they're going to feel what's underneath the bed, or what's around the next corner. So the thing about these movies is, so interestingly enough, obviously, when I listen to podcasts, I've been listening to you guys talk about this alien project, this alien project where where it's like 3 didn't exist, which I kind of find frustrating because I too watched 3. In fact, I think I've liked 3 all along. I love the supporting cast in that movie. I know the whole point of like 2 is that you kind of fall in love with these 2 characters in you and Michael Bihn's character, but there's something about that, all those thespians in a prison working really hard and teaming together to survive the xenomorph. But the most recent films, I'm not surprised they've brought in a heavyweight like Hill, because it just feels like when, particularly with Covenant, there was this element of, so you made this film, you edited this film, but you forgot to invite the test audience because some of the dialogue in this movie is crap. I mean, in Covenant, do we have to go back with the flute scene? I'm sorry. This is meant to be a scary movie, and my one memory of that.
That's Prometheus.
No, that's Covenant.
No, the flute. I'll do the fingering.
Oh, I'll do the.
I remember that because we all burst out laughing.
I'll do the fingering. Right.
So it's just like, why you come on, just be smarter than that, So you've set a tone for a movie.
Or maybe that scene was very smart. You just didn't get it. I remember in a previous podcast, I was like you. I was slagging off the scene, but then Leo went into why that scene was relevant, and I forget what he said. You'd have to chase up the podcast. But him and Joe were totally like, well, actually, it's about synthetic beings being creative and creating a new element, because what you got to understand, that whole movie is about androids being made to serve, and the whole point of music is that it's a very creative thing. So when he tells the other android, I'll do the fingering, it's actually him going against his programming to show that he's more than just an android and to create something that is an extension of himself. So actually, I would say that's very clever writing, and it was actually added humor in there, which I will admit was a little bit left field for an Alien movie. But when you think about it in terms of the context, it's actually pretty smart, to be fair.
Well, I think the subtext is very clever. I just think the actual dialogue ruins it then, because I know I do get your point, and I have heard that argument before in terms of they're meant to make this whole partnership thing and set this level and set the tone in the movie, but it's just there's infuriating moments where, because the thing about Covenant, it does have some good scenes. I don't think many people can top Scott for all-out scenery. You could go to a Ridley Scott movie and just go, wow, based on just the background. But the movie has to be more about that, and he does deliver that. But then when you get like silly moments like that with bad storylines. So to the point we were making, Joe's point of resetting, I think is kind of the way to go. There is sometimes, I get why sometimes directors really want to continue telling the story. Obviously, you've got Star Wars, you've got other directors that will return to the previous successful franchises. But the thing about this is it's just been a bit of a roller coaster. It's not even like a Star Trek roller coaster where every evening is a good movie. It's just every movie is a weird movie. Because I love Prometheus actually. I know a lot of people have a problem with the ending. I know people tend to make it out.
The ending's one of the best parts. I think anyway. It just gives you that this is connective tissue to those other films. It's not screaming in your face. This is aliens. This is aliens. This is aliens. This is connected to aliens. Hey, did I tell you this is connected to aliens? Hey, aliens, aliens, aliens.
See, I felt that. That was my only thing that's the only, well, there were two things I didn't like about Prometheus. And not that I hated the movie. I actually enjoyed the movie plenty. But as I said on last podcast, I didn't like some of the characterizations with people because people would react in a way that their character wouldn't. And
yeah,
the other one being the blatant, hey, for all you dumb people out there, here's an alien, just so that you know, because we're not calling it Alien Prometheus.
I guarantee you that was a Fox thing. Fox told them, you need to put something in.
Yeah, totally. But I think it would have been smarter not to do it. But Fox executives, they were just like, no, we need to show the connection, and it was just like, okay. Fine. And that's probably why it was left till the very, very, very end, because I think even Ridley Scott didn't want to do it. Personally, if I was Scott, I would have done it as after credits, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think he would have got away with that either. Sorry, carry on.
I think about, like, I've been listening to a few points. One, in regards to the flute thing, I didn't even realize until you guys were literally just speaking about it.
Yeah.
That directly ties into a conversation that, is it David? Is his name David?
Yeah, David.
Yeah.
It ties directly to a conversation that David has in Prometheus with, I don't know his name, but the actor's name is Logan Marshall Green.
Oh, right. That was the husband of Naomi Oropis.
Of Shaw.
Yeah,
sure. When they're having a conversation, I think it's like next to a pool table or something, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, Logan Marshall Green, I think he's pissed off or whatever, but he's basically like, you're a machine. You're never going to make music. You're never going to make art. You're never, he's like berating him. And obviously being an android, David's just got that cool kind of like nonchalant demeanor. But I think like the way it kind of works out now is it's basically like that little scene is like a biggest fuck you to Logan Marshall Green's character. Just like, oh yeah, well, you want to see some creativity? How about
that's when he sticks his finger in the yeah.
He's like, I created a baby in your missus, and then I played the flute with the child. How about that? Right?
Can see it that way as well. Yeah.
I think in regards to when you were saying about the thing of Prometheus, I feel like Prometheus could have worked better if you didn't know it had any kind of connection to Alien.
That was his intent.
Yeah, that doesn't come from the film. That comes from the marketing, and we all know that how many films have been ruined by their marketing, right? It's that simple thing there of it's like, it was like, we have to basically, like, we have to throw it in your face like monkey shit that this is an alien film, and it's just like alien film, and it's like, no, you've got Ridley Scott, you had Noomi Raplant's, you've got freaking Michael Fassbender, you've got a brilliant cast, you've got a brilliant director, and the film looks beautiful. You could have given us no indication that it had any kind of relationship to Alien, other than the two scenes, the one where you see I think it's the deacon, where you see it in the wall art, and the other being the very end. And it would have been a nice, pleasant surprise. It's sort of like the best way I can liken it back to is, I mean, it's a bad example, but I think it's the last Final Destination film that they made.
Oh, it loops back round.
Yes,
to the first
and it's
one.
like the very end, you find out that the people who survived are on the plane from the first movie.
Yeah. And
I'm like, that is brilliant, because
that's a good film, actually.
Yeah, like I haven't watched it, but
It's a good film.
knowing that that's anything. And I'm just like, that is brilliant. That is brilliant storytelling. And if you do, if they did Prometheus like that, it would have been brilliant. But again, it's like when a film studio gives you however much money they gave Ridley Scott to make Prometheus,
90
million.
Yeah.
Well, look, somebody give me 90 million and they're like, yeah, I want to see this in there. I'll be like, bruh, I got you. I'm good. I got you. You want to see it? You will see it twice. But I think
that's the thing. I agree with Neil on that point, but I also have a bit of an issue sometimes with Ridley Scott because he's sometimes been very vocal about the things that he can and can't do in movies. And I do feel like sometimes people just need to say, you do realize you're Ridley Scott, right? I mean, you've done all these things. You're the one, this is your baby. And how many films have we got where he's come out and said he couldn't do what he wanted to, or if he did this, he wouldn't be able to get funded? In particular, I know
where you're going.
I do.
Yeah, because it kind of frustrates me a little bit because, I mean, case in point, Sacha will know the story better than I am, but how many versions of Blade Runner are there? And it's,
5.
In the early days, of course, he didn't have the clout he did back then. But now it's Ridley Scott, man. You say that name and people are going to see your movie. So we still have these quibbles about how a movie that he made looks.
Yeah.
Okay. To go back on Blade Runner, why there's different cuts. You got to understand, you got to go back to the original cut. Okay. The original cut, when he made the film, Warner Brothers didn't like what they saw, so it went into what we would call reshoots, where they got stock footage of The Shining, actual footage from the film The Shining, and put it in, and then they got Harrison Ford to do a voiceover throughout the movie, like a film noir kind of movie. And Scott never liked that, and then came the director's cut. Okay, so that's 2 cuts there. There's the one that came out in cinema and the one that was shown to the Warner Brothers executive. Then what happened was in the 90s, there was a big thing about director's cuts, because James Cameron more or less got a director's cut of Alien and Terminator 2. And because there was a big sci-fi resurgence, Warner Brothers thought, fuck it, we'll just do we'll call it the director's cut for Blade Runner without even consulting Ridley Scott to make a few bucks on the home video market. And that's what they did. And that's how we got Blade Runner, the director's cut, which wasn't actually the director's cut. So that's 3 cuts of the film. There was a 4th cut, and that was for Laserdisc. And again, that was just Warner Brothers just trying to milk the pie, had nothing to do with Ridley Scott. When he finally did get clout, because it's nice to say that he'd done all these movies before, but the fact is he was a hired director. And if you look at his filmographies, when they came out at the time, Blade Runner was a flop. Alien did modestly well, but it wasn't a huge financial hit. Okay. That came after with Aliens because James Cameron really wanted to do a film for Fox to fund T2 and The Abyss. And he looked at Aliens and decided, I'll do Aliens, and that's what spawned that franchise into the franchise that is today. After that, if you look at his filmography, it was nothing but studio film after studio film, but nothing that had his name on, you know what I mean? Where it was like something he wanted to do. And that's when Gladiator came, when he got, the Ridley Scott banner. Now, the thing is, when that came out, it was like Hollywood only just remembered who the guy was. And they were like, oh yeah, he did Alien. Oh yeah, he did Blade Runner. They're classics now. Do you know what I mean? And then it was also a case of you had the DVD market. And he went to do a film with Warner Brothers and he said, I'll do the film if I get to finish Blade Runner for the Blu-ray and the DVD.
Remember
and
that.
They were like, fine. And they were like, fine. And they were like, fine.
I hope that film won Kingdom of Heaven.
You've got to understand. You've got to understand. Just because he's Ridley Scott doesn't mean that he can make anything he wants. He's still that
He's
that
still
gold
he's
card
still beholden to the studio,
which means he's he's still you know what I mean, which means all that money, that 200 million on a movie, that's the studio's money, that's not his money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not how it.
I get that. I get that.
That's not how it works. I'll give you an example. Kingdom of Heaven, not Kingdom of Heaven. He did a film, Gods of Egypt. No, not Gods of Egypt.
Gods of Egypt.
That's my bone of contention.
It wasn't Gods of Egypt. It was.
Oh, you're talking
Exodus.
about Exodus.
Gods and Kings. Okay. So he really should have got a publicist to say whatever he did, because someone brought in, like, why didn't you get people from that background?
Yeah.
And I can't remember the exact quote, but I think he said someone from that background wouldn't sell the movie or something like that. Now, here's the thing. He's 100% right. Okay? It's not a race thing. Okay? But this is why. Aladdin. Okay? They spent no, actually, bad example. No, here's the thing. Name me an A-lister that could sell a movie that's of that descent. You're spending, your studio exec, okay? You're spending 200 million on a movie, okay? You're only going to get that money if you've got big stars, okay? That's standard protocol of any movie, okay? It comes down to IP, who's in it, and the director's not even the thing, because you know what? If the director wants to do Exodus, he can fuck off, because we'll just hire the guy from the film school, or, you know what I mean? That's if it's a studio movie. You know what I mean? Like, Ridley Scott has missed out on loads of films because he's Ridley Scott. Do you know what I mean? There's so many things you read in the trailers. Oh, he's supposed to do that movie, and he doesn't because they replace him. You know what I mean? Now, in order to get 200 million to make an epic, you know what I mean? You need stars, unfortunately. If you're talking about actors from that descent, I'm from Asian descent, okay? Bollywood actors don't want to come to Hollywood. They don't. Some do, but then they go back. There's a big reason for that, because in their own country, they're megastars. They come to the US, they've got to start from the ground up again. That was one of the reasons Jackie Chan never wanted to make the transition to Hollywood for years, because he tried in the 80s, and you know what I mean? They had him doing the stereotypical kung fu, hi-ya kind of stuff, and he was like, nah, fuck this shit. Do you know what I mean? It took 20 years later for Brett Ratner, who's someone that no one really mentions now, but Brett Ratner was a huge Jackie Chan fan, knew what he was capable of, and exported him over. You know what I mean? And was like, I want to make a Jackie Chan film, you know?
See,
yeah.
And that's a unique thing. But if you're talking about Asian actors, you know, that they could have bit, they could have come to the UK. There's a lot of Asian actors in the UK, definitely, but none of those guys have been given the chance to be an A-lister, or no one has done the body of work to make it to that level.
Benedict
you
Wong.
know? Huh?
Benedict Wong.
Benedict.
He's brilliant.
Name a film name a film he's headlined by himself.
Well, it's not really a
film. An indie film where he could
let
just
me talk
team up with a friend. Yeah.
Go
on.
He's in a Netflix show called oh god, what's it called? It's to do with Genghis Khan. I cannot remember the name of it.
Marco Polo?
Say again?
Is that it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what? I have to say, right? When you were saying, Richard, about like, you know, about being a name, I think that's one thing where I do have to slightly disagree with you, because we have the proof is in the pudding with Martin Scorsese. You know, he's always, you know, to be blunt, he's always bitching and moaning that, oh, he can't get to make the film he wants to make because they won't give him the money. And then he was like, oh, it's all comic book movies' faults. That, you know, like, you know, that's not what he said verbatim, but that's what he was implying. And I get it is true that, you know, for the most part, only certain film directors have that ability where they're like, I'm gonna make the film I want to make. And
they've got that
if
clout.
you don't like it, well, I'll take my business elsewhere and someone else is going to love it and you're going to have to suffer that you don't have it no more.
Yeah.
There's only a very, very, very small number of people who can do that. That said, where like what, and I know we were touching on with Ridley Scott when he was like, he did Exodus and he was like, oh, you know, well, if I cast it like racially accurate, then the film wouldn't have got made. That to me, that brings two questions into my mind. Always brings two questions. One, okay, you need a star. You telling me you needed all the stars you got? You couldn't have had half of them, and then you can't bring people up. That's one thing, because I'm like, you know, look at Planet of the Apes, right? Planet of the Apes, Charlton Heston, done. That's what it did. It was like, we got Charlton Heston and people in my ape suits. Right. And the second thing that it also kind of it brings to my mind is like, bro, you're making a movie where really and truly the only thing that needs your money and your time and attention is about 4 scenes. There's about 4 scenes that really, really need you to be like, I need money for this. And that's Moses parting the Red Sea, and maybe a couple of 1-2 things that happen when Moses comes back and he's like, yeah, like I can turn my staff into a snake.
There's Lotus and a hell of a lot of food dye for the water.
Right? That's yeah. And I'm like, I was like, you know, he was like, oh, you know, well, we need the food dye. So when he, you know, oh, you know, I'd have never got my movie made. I'm like, bruv, are you not Ridley Scott? Were you not the same Ridley Scott who made The Duelist? Were you not the same Ridley Scott who made Alien, right? I'm like, they didn't give you a lot of money to make these movies, and you made
the other part,
magic with that.
Absolutely. I take Sacha's point.
The other point of it, the other point I might add, in terms of this is Ridley Scott specific as well.
Yeah,
he casts his films very differently to other directors. He casts actors that can act and actors that he trusts to do the job well. Now, if you're a director, there are 2 types of directors. There are directors that trust the actors complicitly to do their thing while the director works on the cinematography aspects of the films with the DOP, etc. And that's the kind of director Ridley Scott is. So when he casts an actor, usually he went through a Russell Crowe phase where my man was in everything. You know what I mean? He did. And then, you know what I mean? And the thing is, if you cast an actor, you want to be able to trust that they're going to bring it and be on point every single take. If you bring a new person in, you've got to work with them on their craft 24/7. And that's a fact. Okay. A big budget blockbuster isn't the kind of thing where you have man hours to have the rehearsals to do that kind of thing. That's a fact. That's a given.
I don't know.
If it was an indie, no, dude, I do, because I've been on sets now. Okay, I've been there where I've seen actors. I've been there where I've seen actors like take like 80 takes. Okay, so it's very different. You know what I mean? It's a different kind of thing when you're trying to get from point A to point B. I'm not saying, for the record here, I'm not saying that this is why. I'm coming to an understanding of why would they not? Do you know what I mean?
For that particular film.
Yeah, for that particular film. Yeah. Because you've got to see everything rather than his comment at point face value here. Because my man needed a publicist, hands down, because that was stupid. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, Hollywood in general should make more films with people from more diverse backgrounds. As a general rule. And I think a lot more people from those diverse backgrounds should work more on independent films to get their names out there. Now's the time. Now there's been a big change in Hollywood where they're listening to voices. If you go to every film festival, they're looking for diversity now. It is now the thing. It should have been the thing back then, to be fair, but change is happening. And you know, we're getting more good, diverse pictures because of that, you know, and hopefully we'll get bigger movie stars from that and new movie stars from that. I remember reading a thing about the guy in Aladdin saying that he's not been cast in anything. And my first thought actually wasn't, oh my God, this is a race thing. My first thought was, well, I've seen Aladdin. You were shit, mate.
Now, you've said that before.
Yeah.
And as a family man, I will say this to you again. I genuinely don't think they made this is the thing. The film wasn't made for us. The film was made for kids.
He was terrible, but he was terrible.
Not terrible.
He was terrible, mate. He needed acting lessons. Man
It's
needed
true,
acting lessons.
All right, look, I'll give you this point, right? He's not the greatest, you know. He ain't gonna like Aladdin ain't bagging you no Oscars. Clearly,
I ain't casting him in the film.
I would say this, right? There's one thing that I would say is the only thing that stands out about Aladdin is Will Smith.
Will Smith.
Right?
Will Smith was amazing.
You know, people say like, so
because he's not Robin Williams.
It's the first time I'd ever heard anybody say anything about the dude playing Aladdin, but it's like, okay, the girl who played Jasmine, the only thing I'd seen her in prior to that was Power Rangers, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this film is not about you. You are the focus point of the film, but the film is not about you. The film is about the genie. The film is about everybody watching Will Smith bring this modern day take of the genie. That's it. That's the whole thing, right? It's it's virtually the same as when they did the animated one and they made Robin Williams, the genie, the biggest thing on the poster, and he got pissed off about it, right? That simple thing there is, it's like, okay, and that, in fact, that's the point of, you have a movie where there's one big star and everybody else in this movie is just, you're in it basically to fill the role, right? But you ain't the star. Someone else is the star, you're in it to fill a role. But it does kind of tie into what Richard said, is like, the film wasn't made for us. We, being adults and being film lovers, we sit there and watch it and we're like, I'm judging you. But at the same time, it was like, you know, who was the voice actor of Aladdin in the Robin Williams one?
I haven't got a clue.
Voice actor for who?
Nobody. I don't know.
Okay,
like, all I know is that Robin Williams is the voice of the genie, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you if I guessed it. Anyone else in that cast list?
Some guy.
Yeah, some dude. and the thing is, what makes it even funnier is when you think about it with Aladdin. Aladdin was drawn to look like Tom Cruise.
What?
Yes.
No, look it up. Look it up.
It was.
You know, they drew Aladdin in the animated film. They drew him to be a caricature of Tom Cruise, right? He weren't supposed to look Middle Eastern. He right? And yes, I know now. And now you're gonna watch
that I knew.
Right?
That is a movie that I knew.
When you watch the film later, if you ever watch it again, you're gonna look and you're gonna be like, oh damn, right?
Oh, good. That's hilarious.
This is that. And see, the thing is, and people don't realize this is why, like, if you stay for the credits at the end, you hear "Highway to the Danger Zone."
No way.
Right?
You don't. No, I'm joking.
I know.
It's that little thing. It's little things like that. It's, you know. So when we're talking about Aladdin, I was like, you know, even if you think about it,
absolutely. No, brilliant points. Brilliant points. And I just think it just leads to a great discussion of, you know, when these people have the power. I think I didn't articulate myself over Sacha in that I get that people like Ridley choose people they worked with before, but they also have to look on to the next generation, and they also have to look, whatever their background, whatever their skill set and everything, and they also need to give people a chance. You know, the next person could be the next.
I think those decisions.
Yeah. So I get your point, because of course the lead's going to be people tried and tested and things like that. But I think what the awareness that comes through is that more people are going to start saying, you know what, I'm going to give this kid a shot. He's going to have a supporting role in this movie. He's going to be a key part of this scene, and it's going to build and build and build. And that's what we needed to do, really, because you get to a point where if I've seen the same actor in every Scott movie or every Nolan movie, you're just like, come on now. Which is why it's, you know, we're going to talk about Tenet in a minute, so in a while. So you know, bring it on.
This is the last thing I'll say about this whole thing. Ridley Scott did give Jesse Sommelier a chance, and look what happened to him.
Yes, because he was a moron.
Yeah,
Just this one, guys.
that's because he's a dickhead.
That's the
right?
last time I give a black guy a chance.
That's true. He probably looked at that and he was just like, see, I can't mess with you no more.
Well,
To
anyway,
be honest with you, I'm sure that there's a few black directors who was like, I can't mess with this dude no more.
yeah, exactly. Anyway, that's the last one I'll talk about.
Yeah.
It. So Sach, I'll let you carry on to the next thing. You said you got rid of Relic Hunter or Relic. And,
yes.
I'm glad you did, because I watched the trailer for that and I was just gearing up to just
the
cuss.
next Joker. Okay, so the next Joker.
So the big rumor mill is Matt Reeves has more or less written a Batman trilogy with Robert Pattinson, and everyone's talking about the Joker. Really, who's going to play Pattinson's Joker in his series of movies? That's literally it. That's literally the buzz. So, who would you guys like to see square up against Arpaz?
Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, that would be.
I was Brock
Do you
Lesnar,
know what?
You
make a good Bane.
I want Brock Lesnar as the Joker. I want someone to give him some speed just before just before they say action, and then like when they say action, ring the bell from like the UFC and let him just beat the hell out of Robert Pattinson for like 25 seconds. Film it, and they'd be like, and cut. That's a wrap.
Right, hang on. So Neil, have I heard in a previous? I've heard in a previous podcast. You're not a Pattinson fan, are you?
No. Correction. I am a Pattinson fan. I am not a Pattinson fan of Batman. I am not him. No, he ain't Batman. No, sorry.
Has anyone of you guys seen The Lighthouse?
Yes.
No.
That film is crazy, man.
So because of Sacha's recommendation, I've queued that movie up. And I have tried to look at one or two performances of his to see what's going to happen. And this is crazy because I'm trying really hard to balance that do not judge you till you see it scenario I had with Affleck when he was doing Batman versus Superman. And we were all, but the thing about Affleck was I preferred him as an actor anyway. He already, had an Academy Award, not for acting, but, he'd come close once or twice. And he'd done a superhero movie before. I don't hold him responsible for the slight disaster that was the Daredevil movie. I don't feel that all of that's his fault. But it was a different equation. With this just feels completely, even Christian Bale. Christian Bale, we knew he was method. So we knew that we were going to get something of a deep performance. And even I could have anticipated what we got with the Nolan trilogy. And I love the Nolan trilogy, absolutely. So this is just going to be surreal. I think a Joker performance now, after the last one, and when I say the last one, obviously I'm talking about Heath Ledger, because I can't quite bring myself to watch the Joker yet, because I still can't get my head around why we don't have a combined universe. So I'm going to let some other throw some names in. I'm going to let some other names, and then I'll just jump on the bandwagon of one of your recommendations, because I just can't place anybody in that movie because I still can't get comfortable with Pattinson. Or should we just start calling him Batterson?
No, we're gonna call it. You know what? I'll be blunt. I had a text conversation.
Maybe someone should call Taylor Lautner.
Bro, well, he could be Nightwing, innit? Right, but look, you know what?
I'm kidding. He's not on my list, but like I thought I'd throw him out there because he's like not working after them Twilight movies. I thought maybe Pattinson.
No, you know what? It was the Twilight movies that screwed him up. He did some film after that called Abduction.
I remember that action film. Yeah,
yeah, and that's when people was like, "Nah, you done." But you know what it is?
He ironically actually isn't that bad of an actor because he was in a weird British comedy with Greg Davies, Peacock or something like that.
I know which one you're talking about. Not Stupid. What was it called? I can't remember what it is, but I know exactly what it is. Where he's like he's dating the guy's daughter.
I can't remember that. I
It'll
can't
come
even
to
think
me
of
in a
what that
moment.
is.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, look, the perfect person.
Cuckoo.
Yes, cuckoo. That was it. Not
Right.
yeah. It's
Sorry, I think I said peacock. I have no idea where that word came from.
for
Close.
casting. The problem we get with casting is when you're casting something like, okay, you're casting a Batman, so you need to cast a Joker, so to speak, right? You need to cast someone who can act well off of the performance that they are being given. So, you know, I mean, really and truly, you could get any great, well, not any great actor, but you could get a lot of great actors, maybe method actors, someone who's a bit, you know, bit off the cuff to play the Joker, and it would do really well, right? Playing against the right Batman. But it's like, to me, because the thing is, I got issues with the entire Batman film, with this entire The Batman, Matt Reeves, Pattinson film. I have issues with that. The first of my issues with it is you've got all these brilliant actors, right? So, okay, you got Zoe Kravitz playing Selena Kyle, Catwoman. Okay, I'm cool with that. I got no issues with that. I think she's going to work very well off Pattinson because she has a very, she's got a certain kind of specificity to her that works well as Catwoman, the character. And I can see her pulling that well off of Pattinson. Like Pattinson, on his own, if somebody was like, I'm going to make a movie about Bruce Wayne, not about Batman, about Bruce Wayne. Pattinson, I'd be like, hey, look, man, midnight screening, I'm there. But you got to bring a certain level of presence when you're playing Batman, right? You're not, you know, it's like, even though we've had so many different actors do it and they've all done it in very different ways, you know, you have to have a certain presence when you play that role. Pattinson does not have that presence. And unfortunately, maybe it's just, you know, it like, you know, what we say about the whole thing of people need publicists. The dude could have done with a publicist, because when he's like, oh, you know, he's like, oh, are you working out in the pandemic? No, I'm not doing that, bro. I don't want to set a precedent. Bro, you're playing Batman, right? You don't get the option to be like, I'm not doing a precedent. That's not your job. Your job is to work out, hit the gym. Oh, they'll be like, oh, what are you gonna eat? Well, I think I'm gonna go for some caviar. No, you're on the keto diet. You ain't eating nothing but meat for the next 6 months, right?
I'll do it.
You know, yes, you know, you give him that hard graft. It's like, you have to do this. And they're like, oh, but it's about Batman being a detective. Yeah, absolutely. But you're gonna have to fight someone in this film. And it's not gonna do, you know, okay, comic book fans aren't the only people going to see this film, but it's not gonna do well for the promotion of this film if the core audience don't go to watch it, because, you know, you're there looking like freaking, you know, you can't be looking like Dao Sim in Street Fighter 2, right? If you're there looking like, you know, Dao Sim come Street Fighter 4, then maybe we're like, okay, yeah. You know, you did some.
Technically, I can't play the Joker. Cheers, Neil.
Huh?
Technically,
Right.
you can't play the Joker.
Okay, I'm going to throw some names.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw some random names.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some names. I'm going to see if they match with yours.
Heath Ledger.
Okay, no, you first.
Heath Ledger.
I will
Heath
comfortably
Ledger.
go last.
Heath Ledger.
So I tapped them down a little while ago. But the problem is, and let me say this before I say these names, is as I read through the names I saw recommend online, and one or two thoughts I had, these people are all too big for this movie because Pattinson isn't A-list. That's the problem.
No,
So
Patterson's very A-list. Has been for a while.
He's you know, he's
The
probably
Lighthouse.
in the
no,
Greek
Rover.
alphabet then, because
he's not.
You can't say The Lighthouse. That made
You
no
don't say it.
money. No money.
right. So
Patterson,
the first
I feel like
first
there's
name.
two different A-lists. Sorry, Richard. I think there's two different A-lists. There's A-list where you look at it and you're like, I can stick you on the cover, and every single person, whether they like the property or not like the property, are going to go and see this film, right? And then there's A-list of like, okay, well, you are a tremendous actor. You are brilliant at your craft. You are the name that we're going to bring forward. The best way I could describe it, if they do like a sports analogy, is like there's, you know, your Paul Scholes, who was like, you know, one of the greatest midfielders in football, but then there's David Beckham, right? So one of them is the star name. They're very good at what they do, but they're the star name. They can sell cars and they can sell the aftershave and things, right? And then there's the person that you want for the job. And I think Patterson is one of those guys of like, if you want an actor, you want an actor's actor, you want someone who like the Academy is going to sit down and be like, wow, what a performance. You pick Patterson. You want a dude who's playing Batman who like, yeah, you know, like, you know, when you take off your shirt because you just finished crime fighting, and people are going to be like, God damn, he ain't the guy.
So who are your names?
Right.
Sorry, that little.
So the names I saw was Johnny Depp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is Joker, Johnny Depp, William Dafoe, Noah, that's the director. Shame. Who's on here? Ironically, one of the roles that came up was Christian Bale. How ironic would that be? If he came back and played the Joker. This won't happen because obviously he just did Marvel, but some people cross over. Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay, yeah.
He could do that. That would work actually, I think. He won't do it, but could you imagine Christoph Waltz?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Christoph Waltz. I think that would be amazing. And actually, my favorite last two picks is because he's on a comeback is Mel Gibson.
Oof.
That's going into Jack Nicholson territory.
And Leo DiCaprio, but I think he's too big. You can't have the Joker. You can, but well, you sort of can have him outshine Batman, but not on that level.
I would like to see him as I'd like to see him as Batman. Okay, so I've got
DiCaprio.
Yeah, no, not Batman, as Joker. Yeah, I had him and I had
and excuse the pun intended. My Joker is James Franco.
Ooh,
that is my first round draft pick.
That's a good choice. That's a good choice. So I had Depp, I had DiCaprio. I also had Crispin Glover.
Too old.
Is he though?
And I can't.
Yeah, a little.
Is he though?
Little, yeah.
I think he might be for this. I don't mean to be ageist.
Well, I mean, to be honest, does it
I'd have to
matter
Google
the sort of age? I mean, as long as he can go around and do what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of the guys I got are pretty old as well. I was going to say Steve Buscemi, Christian Slater, and John Travolta.
Yeah. No, Travolta.
When John Travolta learns how to act again, maybe.
See, now mine, right? My first round draft pick, without a doubt, James Franco. Right? I would say as well, which is ironic because I'm like, if I was casting Batman, this person would be my first choice for Batman. Logan Marshall Green. So he's in, he was in Prometheus. He's in Upload.
He's the double ganger for Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Right. Those two. I mean, he'd never be able to lose the. I don't think he'd be able to lose the accent, but I think is it Jamie Dornan?
Oh yeah, he could. He'll lose the accent.
With him.
Well, it's funny you should say that because I think it was Sacha's the one that told. No, yes, Sacha, we're talking about the fact that didn't he take up the movie that Patterson? He did 50 Shades, and Patterson was offered 50. Was it Patterson that was offered 50 Shades?
Yeah, and he was offered 50 Shades because it was connected to Twilight, and Patterson and Jamie Dornan took it.
Because I thought also there's another actor who was in the guy that was in Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, Charlie
Hunnam.
Yeah.
Charlie Hunnam's a good Batman pick. Charlie Hunnam is a good Batman pick.
No, Armie Hammer was a good Batman pick.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
actually he is.
Mhm.
Oh, it's just
Yeah,
so
he
crazy.
could still play Batman.
I mean, it's crazy because I don't feel like you can ever have a sensible Joker conversation because it's still ingrained in so many of us that this guy is the wrong Batman. It's, we've just seen Disney acquire a company who acquired a company to bring together the best comic book franchise of all time, where everything's unified, nearly everything, which we'll talk about later on, is on the same page. These films interconnect with series, they interconnect with films, there's Easter eggs, there's tributes, and most of all, they listen to the fans. On the other side, you've got this DC universe where executives kept their bonuses and said, screw the fans, we're going to take all the money and we're going to leave this thing so disjointed, especially considering the TV shows have just done a big thing where you combine everything.
Yeah.
Yet we still end up with 2 Flashes, no Green Lantern, Arrow, who knows if that's ever going to come back again, Superman and a Supergirl. It's just such a real mess, and then you've just got this movie which is being shot, which is literally being kicked in the face by a re-edit of Justice League. So it's just just begs belief.
I said it in a previous podcast, right? I was like, you know what? For me, it was literally because the way I got the news, it was something like, maybe let's say it was like Monday. Robert Pattinson was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not working out for Batman. I don't want to set a precedent." And then it was like Thursday. It was like, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Snyder Cut." And it was just like, I can imagine, like, the boss of the comics division at Warner Brothers was like, just sitting there having a meeting, and it was like the text message comes through. His assistant is like, "Yeah, Pattinson ain't working out," and it was just like, meeting done, and he's like, "Yeah."
Then but then Michael Keaton never worked out, and he's the best Batman, hands down.
That's an opinion.
That's
my opinion. That's my opinion.
Your opinion.
That is my opinion. He's the best Batman, hands down.
I'm just gonna pour water all over my keyboard right now. And
I love Bale. I love Bale. I do love Bale, but Cookie Monster voice.
Right. But my thing is this, right? Here's how I put it down very, very simply in regards to that, right? When Michael Keaton was playing Batman, there was no bar. The bar hadn't been set of, you're going to play a superhero, you need to look like this, right? It was comfortable and fine for him to play the role the way he did. Likewise for Christopher Reeves and Superman. It was like, and he's not a small guy. He's a very athletic guy, but it was a thing of, you're fine.
Who's that? Reeves.
Reeves. Yeah,
that's not true. Because funnily enough, when he went for his audition, I actually watched this just before the podcast. I was watching the documentary on Superman. When he showed up for the audition, no, not the audition, for the meeting with Richard Donner, he was a very skinny guy. He's a very skinny guy.
Well,
hear me out. When he went for his audition, very skinny guy, but what he did in the audition, he had all the qualities for Superman kind of thing, because they were looking for someone that could act both personas, and he nailed it both times. So then he hit the gym.
Cool. But
he hit the gym.
Absolutely.
But I just had to say, he wasn't a built guy to begin with, man. He like,
true, but he's like 6'3", isn't he? Or he was like 6'3".
He did the transformation. He did the transformation, and he dedicated himself to the transformation, and that's why he's Superman, and still is Superman.
All right, Satch. Let Neil finish his point.
Yeah, but one, he started with his base is the fact that he's 6'3". So you're walking in with a presence, whether you're skinny or not. You're walking in with a presence. But that's one. But also, we got to remember, right? We live in the age now, 2020, where you have people whose job is to freaking, look good on Instagram, right? You can't be having some dude who works, who works in an office and does Instagram part-time looking better than the man that you're paying millions to play Batman. It just doesn't work.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Neil. I appreciate it.
I got work colleagues that look better. I got work colleagues that look better than Robert Pattinson, right? So I'm like, nah, we got issues right here, right?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think we've got to let the movie speak for itself. We're prejudging like we normally do.
This is true, but I think it to me it ties into what I was saying. Like you know, it ties into the thing of he says he doesn't want to set a precedent. The precedent's been set, bro. Right?
Yeah.
So we have to do judgment. I mean, I'll happily admit there have been times when I have been absolutely 101% wrong. I thought Heath Ledger was going to do a terrible job as the Joker. They were like, "Oh, Heath Ledger's
so did I.
There.
So did I.
And everybody jumped on, and they were like, "What, the dude from Brokeback Mountain?" And I was like, "What, the dude from 10 Things I Hate About You?" Nah, son, he ain't got that. He ain't got that in his repertoire. And I was totally wrong. I was absolutely wrong. I haven't been that wrong ever in my life.
I have a theory.
Mm-hmm.
I have a theory that Robert Pattinson is. I think it was a throwaway line. I reckon that man is training, because going back to what you made about the bar being set. I mean, look at people. Look at Pine. Look at Hemsworth. Look at even Downey Jr. And Evans. They bulked up for their roles now. And then you could argue, and I've never thought about it this way, because I learned that story from the documentary like Thatcher after he told me about it, and you could say Christopher Reeve set the bar in terms of prepping for a role, because we know Keaton. I think Keaton wore platforms in that suit, and we know there was a lot of like artificial Jordans.
He wore Jordans.
And we know
he got
limited edition back.
I was serious. He got
it's a bit like the back card, like limited edition back Jordans.
Yeah, I'm trusting you. Like when I noticed that he was wearing Jordans, I was like, any issues I had with you, I didn't have any, but any issues I had, they disappeared. I was like, the Joker with Jordans, right? I was like,
but I think that I think Pattinson might be gaslighting a little bit, and I think also going back to the whole the Joker. I mean, it's a bit of a weird point, because it's not going to be in this movie, so we've got to see if this movie delivers, and then see what the studio does next, because they can't seem to, because they've let executives get away with stuff, because they've ignored the fans, and because they've just not taken their time with certain things. We end up with this thing where they can't commit to a proper storyline, a proper timeline. The only things we're certain of is Aquaman 2, which has been postponed, and Wonder Woman's now been postponed into its release date.
I wouldn't be sure about Aquaman with the whole Amber Heard.
Well, I've seen the petitions to actually remove her from the movie, and the way they're going at the moment, she might just step aside anyway and wait for it to blow down.
I think
it's
also
also
be a better
not,
idea.
It's not even going to be out until, I think Aquaman 2 is what, 2022?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So I think they'll just leave that alone. But before I forget, one of the things you guys have to check out if you get a chance, I was lucky enough to see this video on YouTube a couple of 2 weeks ago, where you know how I love cars. About a year after they finished wrapping the last Nolan Batman movie, there's a brilliant moment where all the Batmobiles are together, and the guys that made them from each movie, where they have anyone that's seen it, I thoroughly recommend it. Watch it. Yeah, there's a beautiful moment where one of the guys who made the tumbler gets to take it to the cancer hospital where he was treated, and it's just the power of cinema at its absolute best. So it's really, really good, something to see.
Well, in going back to the question in hand, in terms of Joker, I don't. Honestly, I'm kind of jokered out. It's like every week it's a Russian roulette who's going to be the next Joker, and so I'm just going to accept whoever the next Joker. If it's as bad as Jared Leto, then I'm kind of out.
I got one person who could play the Joker.
Who's that?
Steve Carell.
Steve Carell.
Steve Carell.
Interesting.
Think, we got the funny man, Steve Carell.
He's on a roll.
Space Force,
on a roll.
Virgin, all that, and then you got Foxcatcher, Steve Carell.
Yeah,
I haven't started yet.
He was sinister.
I haven't started Space Force yet. Is it any good?
It's not bad, but like I'm maybe like 25 minutes in. So
that's not really an endorsement. Funny thing about Foxcatcher. So Steve Carell's one of my one of my I don't know what was the question
Favorite
I like
actors?
to use for him, but he's just not one of my favorite actors. But I do love everything.
He's
nearly
likable.
everything
He's likable.
I think
One of
he's
his go-to
I
guys.
think he's Oscar worthy. I think he's got an Oscar. Same thing I said years ago about Jim Carrey. I think he has an Oscar performance in him. And I've seen 2 to 3 films that prove that point. One of them is Foxcatcher. Until, like I always do, I researched the movie after I watched it, and I was furious when I found out that, because it's obviously based on a true story, Channing Tatum's character doesn't exist in real life. And it just made me annoyed because why do a film about? Well, I don't want to spoil it for everyone, because on some level it's a worthwhile seeing movie. It's a movie worthwhile seeing, but also watch it with the documentary, the true life documentary of actually what happened, because it's actually a really great documentary on the true events surrounding it. But Steve Carell is masterful in that movie, and it's funny, sometimes you get these comedic actors who can turn a performance on its head so brilliantly. So actually, put that name. I think that I'd put that above James Franco.
Don't know,
but then it's interesting because they've taken an interesting direction of who's going to be playing Oswald Cobblepot. So, Matt Reeves has clearly got a big scheme. I think he's got a great plan. I think I have faith in the movie. It's just Patterson is the question mark, because Neil's look tells me that nickname's not going to work. So,
I guess we should move forward now. Sach, do you want to keep doing it, or can I jump into it? How do you want this?
Well, whichever way, man. I'm not too fussed, man.
Okay, well, the next topic is Tenet and Wonder Woman have been delayed. Tenet till the end of July. Wonder Woman, is it August?
Yep.
Okay, so obvious reasons, I guess, why these films have been delayed. Clearly, to what's going on with the world at the moment, it seems to be one thing a week now. But yeah, it was probably the smart move for Warner Brothers, just so they can see the progression of how many cinemas are being opened week to week, and because they need a maximum amount of seats to get that budget back. This is a $200+ million film movie, $1 million movie. So they're gonna have to max the potential for how much this film can make. So end of July, I think, is a better bet than the 17th of July. As for Wonder Woman, same reasons. Maximum potential of revenue, because I'm guessing in these cinemas they're gonna have stunted seating. So yeah, so it's not gonna be a full cinema. It will be at partial capacity. So at least in some countries, I don't know how that's going to play out around the world, but yeah, it's kind of a waiting game. But what do you guys think? Do you think that's a smart move?
I think the smartest move would be to literally just say, you know what, these films don't have a release date. When we know for sure, at least 95, 96% sure, we are going to be able to open cinemas and we're going to be able to have the maximum impact, then you bring out these big, massive tentpole films. Like either, I think it was a thing where Nolan was like adamant that his film was coming out and he's not delaying it and he's not things. And I'm like, I'm sure your film is going to be amazing, but fuck your film, right? I'm more concerned with the health and safety of people on planet Earth, right? I love film. I watch films every single day. I can miss a film if it means, we're going to stay alive, right? I can miss a film if, it keeps people I love and care for alive.
I think he was. I honestly think he was just being helpful. That everything would rectify itself by that time. It clearly hasn't. And
but the thing is, like, we're in a moment in time. We're in a moment in time where real life is way more dramatic and scarier than any film could possibly be.
I'm guessing that film has it's probably the best message in the world. That he wants to. He was so adamant in getting that film out on that date that if that film doesn't have like the ultimate message at the end, then then it
Look,
won't still wait for it.
you know, I know that there's some debate about whether or not the film is about time travel or whatever, but I'm like, unless Homeboy has the freaking formula for time travel, you know, in the credits, unless he's got the freaking formula, the scientific formula in the credits for the film, right, it could wait, right?
Well, I mean,
like obviously everyone wants, you know, you want it that it's like when the pandemic is over and when, you know, all the everything that's going on away from the pandemic, once all of those things are done, or at least as done as they're gonna be, you want something to feel good, and everybody wants, and I can imagine this is probably what he meant when you said that he was more hopeful, where everybody wants that thing that you can look forward to.
Yeah.
Right. And my thing, more than anything, is going to the cinema. Is being able to go to the cinema and sit, like I've said many a time, to me, the cinema is my church, right? And the film I'm watching is my sermon, right? And that's what I'm there for, right? But, you know, it's more important that we deal with these other issues right now. And then when it's all said and done, then he can be like, guess what? We as a planet have overcome these issues. So guess what? Now I'm going to drop this film, you know, October or December. You know what? In fact, December. Look, bro, you know, I know Nolan will never see this, and the executives who control
never
the film
know.
will never see this.
You never know.
If they do see it and hear it, bro, listen here. My birthday is in July. I'd love to come out in July, but you know what I'd love more? Christmas. Give the world a gift. Give the world a gift and say Christmas time, Merry Christmas. That, in fact, you know what you do, right? The new Tenet for the new poster for Tenet, right? When you put them out, you just put a little Christmas tinsel or something over the T's, right? That's all you need. That's all. Bring the film out at Christmas, make the world joyful and happy, and be like, mwah, mwah, beautiful, thank you, right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I think Christmas is a bit of a minefield at the moment because so many films have been pushed back to that date.
That's all right. Tenet's gonna outdo most of them, right? You know,
Maverick, Top Gun Maverick. Whew.
Look, for better or worse, the way we have to look at it is this: for better or worse, Christopher Nolan is that film director that when he puts a film in the cinema, people are going to watch it.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. He is that guy, right? Now, I tell you like this, I don't even know who's directed Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, it's Joseph, the guy who did
the guy that did Tron Legacy.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Right? All right, yeah. Yes, you have the sequel to Top Gun. Yes, you have Tom Cruise. Bruh.
He's on a roll, man.
Film, you're seeing both of those. If you love film, you'll see both of those movies.
Exactly.
And for me, it's more Tenet than Top Gun. I mean, the Top Gun thing is great, but in the back of my mind, there is this voice that says this movie makes no sense. You know, there's no reason why Maverick should still be flying, but we'll let that go because, you know, nostalgia rules, and you know, we all love the 90s.
And he's flying those planes for real.
Yeah, and credit to him because Cruise. I mean, I can't remember the last time I watched a Tom Cruise movie I didn't enjoy.
Yeah,
you know, there are times I really want to poke him with a stick because it's like you're a funny guy, but religion withstanding, it's amazing. I mean, the thing about this movie is, I mean, here's what I'll do, and I'll have to come back on the podcast for this, but I'm going to bet you. No, let me phrase this correctly now. I think based on Patterson's performance in this movie, that will give you. Personally, I feel that's going to be the barometer of what Batman's going to be like, because I'm presuming from the trailers, and you know, I try to avoid trailers because I don't like spoilers to the movies. But from the trailers, I kind of said I have to watch a trailer for this because the movie's freaking well delayed. But Patterson's accent, his demeanor, how he carries himself, it looks to me from like images that I'm looking of the screenshots of the movie, he may have bulked up a little bit already. I mean, for me, I want John David Washington is the movie. Two reasons I want to see this movie: John David Washington, and because it's a Christopher Nolan movie. And I may have to eat some of my earlier words because even Nolan has moved away a bit from his regular casting. You know, I mean, the only person that is in this again is is Michael Caine. I don't think Christopher Nolan could make a movie like Michael Caine in it.
Yeah, I expect to see Michael Caine in every film of his from until the time he dies.
But it's, you know, I mean, I think that this movie's. I agree with Neil. It has to be delayed. These movies, this industry is taking one hell of a battering. The studio, and I think there's a misconception for other people, not people that like Sacha literally worked in the industry and Joe Neal and your knowledge of it, but the studios are going to be fine. It's the lower level workers, it's the riggers, it's the set designers, it's the prop masters, it's the drivers, it's the people who do logistics and people in the cinema industry. They're all going to get hurt. So there's a strategy.
You don't think about.
Yeah, there's a strategy to releasing these movies so that they get their proper breadth of release without stepping on each other's toes. So I don't want to see this go toe to toe with Maverick, because movies are probably not going to get the long run that they need. You know, something that would normally be in the cinema for up to Saturn a proper runtime nowadays, but a 12-week run, or probably more like an 8-week run of a big movie like that's probably going to be condensed because they don't want to go toe to toe with another movie. And then also you've got the other factor that no one's considered, in that different countries are dealing with this pandemic in different ways. So it's no big secret. America, Brazil, they're not doing a great job of handling this pandemic. So who knows if they're even going to be able to go to the cinema, let alone vote. It's just
to be honest, right? As horrible as it sounds, right? Them two countries will open their cinemas regardless of what the pandemic is doing.
Absolutely. And you have to wonder how, I read an article the other day, and I should have bookmarked it. The other element that we have to think about is the piracy industry. That's the reason why one of the reasons that the industry shifted so aggressively to have unified release dates around the world, so that if you release a movie early in certain countries, it's not pirated on the other side of the world. So he's trying to clamp down on that as well, and to some extent it works. So it's going to be a tough call, because I mean, this movie was going to be a movie of some fantastic sequels and comebacks, and it's just been completely decimated. And there are a lot of people out there in the industry that just aren't going to recover. So I'm super disappointed, but health and safety comes first. So, and just a point on Wonder Woman, it's interesting in that obviously we've got now the Snyder Cut coming, and we really don't know what's happening with Aquaman and Flash. So the funny thing about Wonder Woman is that at least Wonder Woman's not relying on a continuing arc into any other movie. So it's not like, because it's starting to look like in the Marvel universe. So Black Widow was postponed, but they had to shift so many other movies because clearly the end of credits and the Easter eggs of various movies were going to feed into one another. So you can't swap them around or make the gap between them too short, because they're still keeping that solid connection that allows you to kind of want to be immersed and involved in every storyline. So they do what they got to do, but the ripple effects are going to be felt for the next 5-6 years in terms of movies. And people even dropping out of movies. People might just say, you know what, I can't do that anymore. I've got to drop out of this because this has been moved forward, this has been pushed back. No one wants to be doing reshoots anymore. You can't be coming back. I don't care about your mustache. Wear a mask.
Well, Satch, haven't heard from you. Any thoughts on that?
None.
Good then. Next question.
I'm staying home. My thoughts are I'm staying home till the apocalypse is over, and then when it's over, maybe a few months from then I'll go cinema. I don't know whether Tenet's on my agenda. It was, but hell, it looks like I'm going to see it on Netflix.
I think the key, personally for me, the key for a couple of screenings are going to be as late and as empty as possible. I'm going to find the most isolated cinema in the country and be
We're
doing
like the one
midnight
that's got, like, the
screenings.
You're not going to find that, Rich, because trust me, whichever cinema that is, it ain't making money, and chances are it's shut for good.
Right, do you know? Hang on, let me just look at my stocks and shares and buy a cinema.
Of whose? What cinema?
You probably could.
Having the only one I'm guessing that's been out quite regularly since the pandemic begun. I think because my plan is to, when Tenet comes out, I'm going to live stream going to the cinema, just so I can show what it's like to go to the cinema at this point in time. And I don't really have a fear of going on the bus, but it's the norm now. When you go into a shop, you have to queue, there's all these things that you have to do now. And unless you're Darwin will work on you if you're stupid enough to do something stupid outside. So if you know what that means, in terms of the whole Darwin effect will work on you if you're stupid enough to allow it to work on you. Other than that, as long as you wash your hands, you keep your distance, you do everything you got to do, I don't see there being a massive problem with doing it. But because I don't know about you, must have been out quite a bit, Richard, because you have to go shopping, you have to do shopping runs and so on and so on. So there's some you get into a mindset of just being able to, okay, well, this is how I adapt to it, and you just get on with it. I go out now without thinking about it. I know what I've got to do. I'm still alive.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, you're absolutely right, Joe, and I think the thing that I've noticed when we've been out and about is to get through this, people need to be patient, they need to be tolerant, which is funny things to say right now, but but there are a lot of people that I found when I'm out, it's like they are going about their day to day and they become complacent. So it's going to be very tricky in the cinema industry we've seen what it's like when people crowd into a screen and all filter out. They're going to have to think about potentially ways in which people go out row by row. It's such a phenomenon. We don't know how to actually measure this. So there'll obviously be certain places have done smart things like do trial runs with their staff, where they've asked people to say, bring in somebody that will all wear masks, and we'll do a trial run of leaving this business premises or leaving this event or something like that, just to see what they can kind of do. So you can imagine if it's going to be social distancing in the cinema, then it might need to be every other seat. Unless you came in together, how do you police that? And it's just a very weird thing, which is why maybe it's not a sense to wait longer for the industry for people in the world, in fact, to recover to a level where you can get the cinemas to be as full as you possibly can in a safe environment. Because these movies, I would say, I'm going to just throw a figure out there and say, I would say most of these movies are probably going to take 30% less than they would have taken in a day to day. And I think that's a good day, but it could be worse. It could be way worse than that. We just don't know. It's going to be interesting because one of the things I've written down that I need to check out in the next couple of weeks is to start seeing all the movies that got released straight to streaming and things like that. How much money did they actually probably lose?
A lot.
And the only barometer of some of them might be if they're a sequel, what did the first movie do? And what's the next one going to do? Were there plans for a trilogy?
None of those films are getting sequels.
You know what? None of them are getting sequels, but I think one of them is absolutely deserving to never get a sequel, and that's Bloodshot.
I mean, let me run through the films that I bookmarked that were going to be for big releases, and some of them will probably be crap anyway. Underwater, Doolittle. I thought Gentleman was postponed.
Doolittle came out.
Doolittle came and went, mate.
Wow, missed that one.
It flopped.
Even Underwater came out as well.
Yeah, that came out as well.
That came out in January. It's really bad. So it's probably that they've gone to streaming sooner than they should have been. There was a movie called The Assistant, The Rhythm Section,
Yeah, the Rhythmception came out as well.
Yeah, it came out.
Okay, forget you, Vanity Fair. That's an awful list. But a lot of movies that just didn't.
For me, the ones that I know that didn't, not to say they didn't come out, but the films that were supposed to come out that definitely didn't were, okay, so Artemis Fowl, which
that should have blown up.
Was it bad?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
That would have been a big movie.
You know what?
That would have been Harry Potter levels.
No, it wouldn't. That film, do you know what that film was? Disney is Neo in the Matrix, and Artemis Fowl is the bullet that he dodged. Because, damn, right?
So we can expect Kenneth Branagh to take on the reins of a Thor film in the future when Taika Waititi's done. Then,
Lord have mercy. For me, it may be a bad thing. For me, I don't really think films are bad when I watch them. Like, it'll take a lot for me to watch a film and be like, this film is bad. You know, that's why it's like, when I think about it, the only films that I saw and have watched the first time and been like, that's a bad film.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, is like the Wicker Man remake. An Artemis Fowl.
The Wicker Man remake is brilliant. It's I don't care.
It's become a joke now.
It's full Cage.
I haven't seen it, but I feel like
this the Nicolas Cage one.
Yeah, Ultimate Cage. The fact that he manages to be able to kick a little girl in that's Ultimate Cage.
Yeah,
it's Ultimate Cage.
Thing,
right, oh, you've not seen it? Have you not seen it, Richard?
Just YouTube it. Just YouTube it. It's jokes.
I have an agreement with Nicolas Cage. I will watch his films when he pays his taxes.
I think that's what he's doing. That's literally what he's doing.
But yeah, to go on to it, so it was like Artemis Fowl is one, Mulan is one, Black Widow, Tenet, A Quiet Place 2, right? But the thing is, really and truly, the majority of these films that have been delayed or been pushed back or have been just like, they're only coming out and streaming, none of them were really sequel-based films. I mean, you say, well, like, none of us have seen Tenet, so we don't know, but Christopher Nolan doesn't strike me as a guy who's like, yeah, don't worry, there's part 2, right?
It's definitely Inception part 2.
You know, so there's that. Quiet Place 2, really and truly, that film exists off the strength of how good and how beloved the first one is.
Mm-hmm.
That movie is so good. I only saw it about 2 months ago, and I wish I'd seen it sooner.
It's a really interesting experience in the cinema. Really, it's different. It's it's one of the only films I'd say you need to watch that in the cinema because it's.
In fact, I think I watched that with you, Sash.
Which one?
A Quiet Place.
I can't remember who I saw Quiet Place.
Yeah, I think I watched it.
It might have been you.
You watched it more than once. Because you watched it and then you were like, have I seen it? And I said no. And you were like, come, let's go watch it now.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, these are films that aren't like really heavily sequel ideas. I mean, and the only thing we can say, oh, that's a sequel idea or that's a film that is going to live on beyond the film would be things like Wonder Woman and Black Widow because they're part of, you know, connected films and connected universes. So the film industry is taking a disgusting hit, but at the same time, all these films that are essentially being delayed or not coming out, they're hurting the film, or they're hurting the industry, but not the film. Mm-hmm. Because the thing is, I'm like, Artemis Fowl would have been a dud the level of John Carter.
Oh, if it come out.
If it had come out, it would have been the level. Yeah. I watched the film, right? And I'm like,
was it Disney Plus?
Yeah, it came out on Disney Plus.
Right.
It was supposed to be in the cinemas and it came out on Disney Plus. And I'm like, I'm the kind of person, if I know something is based on a book and I haven't read the book, I'm watching the film first. So I don't want nothing extra. I want to watch the film first because if the film is good,
so you can judge it as a movie. I get that.
Just as a movie on its own. And I watched this and I was like, I've got the Artemis Fowl books and I'm like, I'm ready to get into them. And I watched this film and I sat there and I was like, I'm damn sure this ain't what happened in the book. they made 5 or 6 of them books. And if this is what happened in the first one, they wouldn't have got to 5 or 6.
Wow.
Right?
I've only just seen some of the reviews. Ooh, damn.
Yeah.
Ow.
Yeah.
Ooh. You know,
that's what I said today when I saw the reviews. So someone did a YouTube video on how disappointing the film was, and how
one of those national Lampoon things where you're like over there and you can hear like somebody falling down the steps. Ooh,
Well, for Kenneth Branagh, it's a good thing he shot Death on the Nile for Fox before he even attempted to direct.
He's busy at the moment. He's in like everything.
So yeah, that movie's
producing.
Yeah, so that movie's out later this year. Probably going to end up on Disney Plus anyway. But yeah, segueing to another Kenneth Branagh project. He talked about why he didn't do Thor 2, but hey, you never know. He might end up doing a Thor picture.
Probably dodged bullet with Thor 2, right?
Yeah. But there was an interview with him because they were pimping this movie out for Disney Plus, and they asked him about why he never stayed on for Thor, and it was quite literally he spent 4 years on the first Thor because they were working on it from the ground up, because obviously there was no Thor character, there was no nothing. Marvel Studios was still in its infancy, so they were really trying to rebuild the world and stuff like you would on a Star Wars or an Avatar, as you will. So that's why it took so long. He didn't want to commit to another 4 years of his life potentially in jumping into a sequel straight away, but he knew that they wanted to go in straight away, so he parted ways. When asked whether he'd do another one, he says he's always open, but it depends on where he is at the time. How do you guys feel about Kenneth Branagh coming back to Thor?
You know what? I don't think he can. I mean, he's a brilliant director. I will never take anything away from him as a director, but I feel like what he set with Thor 1 was so kind of, I mean, like to be blunt, he gave Thor Shakespearean gravity.
Yeah.
Right? And
I agree with that.
But where Thor is now is so far removed. Like, you look at him, because the thing is, you can't look at, it's difficult with like Iron Man 1, 2, 3, Captain America 1, 2, 3, Thor 1, 2, 3. When you look at these films that have had sequels, you got to remember how much time is between these sequels and what has happened to the character between these sequels. So it's like Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, there's pretty much no time between them, so they work perfectly. They were, whether you like Iron Man 2 or not, it's kind of seamless. It's almost like there's Iron Man 1 and then there's 1.5, which is 2, and then it's like Iron Man 2 is like a week in the life kind of thing, and then we've got Iron Man 3, but Iron Man 3 is technically Iron Man like 3.5 because there's Avengers in between that. With Thor, you've got Thor 1, Avengers, Thor 2, and we don't see the character again until Age of Ultron, right? You see the character, but it's a thing of there's character arcs, even if it's the character's only in the film for like 20 minutes or whatever. There's changes and slight shifts and alterations in the character's behavior, their personality, their persona, their profile that carry through. And I don't think where Thor is now, where he's sort of like, a lot more kind of like, he's older and he's more mature, but he still carries a bit of that Thor bro Thor kind of.
Yeah, he's a lad.
Yeah, he's a lad. Perfect. That's it, right? He's a lad now. So it's sort of like, I don't see a director of that caliber and that kind of gravitas coming back to a character that he essentially established.
Do you think he should have done the Dark World?
it would have been better than it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I reckon it would have been a lot better. I can't remember who the villain was.
Malekith, Christopher Eccleston.
Yes, yeah.
And I don't hate Dark World as much as most people. Although I will still say that my order of favorite Thor movies are Ragnarok 1, then 2, and that's just
agreed.
because you just enjoy Ragnarok from start to finish. It's just thoroughly entertaining. You get all the action.
It's fun.
It goes deep. And I love the awareness that the character gets from it all, in terms of like, Dad says to him, you're not the god of hammers, or maybe the god of thunder. But Branagh kind of, I think the thing with Branagh is he just constantly seems busy. I mean, when I was looking this up, I realized that obviously he's been busy. He's popping up in films. He's directing films. He's directing films that aren't going in the cinema, unfortunately. So I think the one factor is, I mean, Love and Thunder. Is it Love and Thunder? Yeah, Love and Thunder is definitely going to be a female. I'm sure it's meant to be a female director, so that's a given.
No, that's
but also
it's Taika Waititi.
Taika's doing that.
Yeah, Taika's doing that.
Because I know Natalie had a clause. It could be the writers. It could, there must have been a deal with Natalie to just kind of like.
No, she's still contracted for 3 movies. She still hasn't fulfilled her end of the bargain, and that's mainly because the cameo in Avengers, she didn't show up for that. That's actually stock footage from the Dark World, and they just paid for her voiceover. So she's still under contract by 1 movie.
Well, as long as she's as long as she's a team player, because with all respect, I get that she has her opinions about certain things, and they're quite valid opinions, and they're right. But there's something to be said for the fans. So I hope she just does the same great performances that she always does. But I think. I think I can totally imagine why Branagh didn't want to do another one. It's a very large franchise, the biggest franchise of all time to be connected to. And if you have multiple interests and other stories, I mean, I'd love to see him just star in one of the movies. It'd be great if he actually appears in one of the other movies as he's good enough to be a villain in a future movie. And there might be some irony in how he plays it. We could, make references to the first movie, you can make references to Shakespeare. I don't know. There's a lot to do. The man's actually quite talented as an actor and a director. So, I think it would be good. But I think the world's going to be very different after the next one, because is Hemsworth are they going to swap back? Who knows? Because it's.
Yeah,
I trust Tycho. I trust Tycho to make the switch without going into too much detail for those of the listeners that don't know what's going to happen in the next one. But
I think it'll be coherent. I don't think Thor is giving up the name of Thor. I just think he's just not going to be. I don't know what the story is, but I think Thor's still going to be Thor.
You know what? The thing is, the kind of clearest way to clear it up is his name is Thor Odin's son. So no matter what happens, no matter who has
Mjolnir,
the power or the hammer or whatever it is, he is always going to be Thor. But people maybe address him as Thor Odin's son.
Okay, but. Yeah. Why is she called Thor? Why is she called Lady Thor? Makes no sense. That's not
because
she's got the power of Thor. That's
she inherits the power.
But
I've seen her listed as Jane Foster / Thor. I've not seen her as Lady Thor. It's just Jane Foster / Thor.
That's she's listed as Thor. But he is also, it's like she's listed as Thor, but his name is Thor. So there's no way that you can we ain't gonna call you Thor, even though it's your born name, just because she now has the power of it.
Yeah, but why is she called Thor?
Because she gets the power.
Yeah, but that's not her name though.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Sam Wilson's name is Sam Wilson, but when he becomes Captain America, he's Captain America.
But why is he Captain America? Because he's still Falcon.
No, but he's classified.
You're being pedantic now.
Yeah,
No,
I do
I'm,
think
I'm,
what they're
I'm,
going to do.
I'm asking a valid question, mate. I'm not being pedantic. It's like Captain
I know
America.
it is
Captain
a
America
valid
was
question,
a
but
program.
Well,
It was a
he
program.
doesn't have the answer to it. None of us do.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, Captain America was a program, right? And
Mhm.
he was part of the Super Soldier program.
So why
and
can't
he
anyone else be
was-
called?
but Captain America wasn't the program. Captain
No,
America.
I just said that. I
Oh,
just said no. I just said that.
Sorry, I think I misheard you.
Yeah, I just said that. I just said that. But the Super Soldier was the program, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's Cap. It was a whole propaganda machine of World War II. So why'd you get? I don't get how you get another one and call them the same thing. Doesn't he lose his? Doesn't that make the character less special?
No,
well,
because
It's
I
not.
think-
It's
I-
not.
I
It's
think-
not a
I think-
mantle. It's not a mantle like Batman. It's not a mantle like Green
I disagree.
Lantern. You disagree?
I'm going to say that
This is a good
I
debate,
think
though.
that-
By the way,
I think Captain America is a symbol. I think
Right.
when Sam and the Winter Soldier, so when they do Captain America, hang on, what's the series going to be called?
Falcon and Winter.
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I personally think he's going to stick the name badge Falcon and stick it in a drawer. And I'll come back to that later, and he'll switch between the two. But I think the symbolism of the shield is Captain America. And I know, because it was the Super Soldier program, he was called Captain America. But I think you can pass the title on, as there will be a new Spider-Man, as there will be a new Iron Man eventually, and the same thing with the Thor thing. So
I mean,
it's going to be weird.
Yeah, because to tie on to that, Wolverine is like James Howlett Logan is not the only person to have been called Wolverine in the Marvel comics. Like X-23 became Wolverine at one point. So it's like the name can shift, and I'm sure that within the realm of the comic books, because there's things like Bill or Beta Ray Bill, he's been Thor at one point. Jane Foster's been Thor. Thor Odin's son obviously been Thor. It's a thing of when you inherit that ability, you kind of inherit the title that comes with it, and you're stuck with that title, whether you want it or not.
Well, again, I think these questions will be answered when we see trailers, when we start to see more things popping up, more info popping up. And as what Satch says, I don't think Jane Foster will be Thor. I think she'll have a name.
She'll probably be Jane Foster.
Or that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Sugar. Could you read the list, because I lost it?
Just while you're bringing that up, and I just realised that slightly related. How are they going to make an Extraction 2? Just seen that wasn't there this morning when I was doing my research, but it's just popped up.
I mean, technically it'd be a spoiler.
I've seen the ending. Yeah, it's a massive spoiler, isn't it? If you've not seen Extraction.
You know what? I'm sorry, you know what? The world's been in pandemic. You've been home long enough that you should have seen this film if you got Netflix, right? He lives, so maybe the extraction is not him. Maybe the extraction is he has to extract somebody else.
They should do the sequel Untitled. Don't let us know he's in it. But anyway, Satch, please continue.
Was it not the thing about?
Okay, so next up is Pierce Brosnan to lead the sci-fi tale Youth.
I don't know much about this other than
you'll have to give me some context, because I couldn't find anything.
Well, it would be good to see Pierce Brosnan back in an interesting role.
You don't think the Eurovision film's going to do it for you?
Eurovision film. I actually haven't heard of that.
Oh, have you not? No. Oh my God, he's in a Will Ferrell movie.
Will Ferrell?
Oh, if it's Will Ferrell, then I know it's a comedy. So that's going to be hilarious.
He plays Will Ferrell's dad.
Oh, that's funny right there. Yeah, I'm up for that. I had no idea about that film.
So yeah, Pierce Brosnan's playing yeah, he's in a science fiction film called Youth, which is based on a short film by director Brett Motley, which is his first film that he's doing. It's based on his 2016 short, and it's basically about what's it? It's about renewal. So he plays like a scientist where he's like in his 70s, but his company, they see him as a commodity and they want to keep him alive longer. So there's this whole thing called the renewal process where they've kind of it's basically Fox die. So they reverse your aging and shit. So they do that to his wife and she turns young, but something goes wrong with him, and that's kind of the whole premise of the film.
I guess it's sci-fi.
What is the original called?
It's the same title.
Oh, it's called Youth. So if I just look up Youth on YouTube, I'm going to see the short.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Cool, perfect.
Yeah, as I said before, seeing Pierce Brosnan in an interesting role will be delightful. I'm not saying that any of his other roles weren't interesting. This is because it's sci-fi. It's a sci-fi and him don't usually go. I've not seen him in a sci-fi film before, so this will be interesting.
One of his shows, just in terms of his acting chops, he was in a really good show called The Sun, which got axed recently, and there was a bit of an uproar about it because it was kind of a multi-generational story of people in the old West America, but kind of like the founding states and places like Texas and things like that.
Oh, right.
Really good cast in it. So he's been really keeping himself busy with things like that, and the occasional, indie film pops up, and when he's not doing a Mamma Mia and apologizing for it afterwards, he's been actually quite good. But I don't know. I can't remember. I'm going to probably get lambasted for saying this. I can't remember ever watching Pierce Brosnan in a sci-fi movie.
He's not. He's never been in a sci-fi movie.
I can't think of one. This could be a first, couldn't it?
I think it is his first. This is why I think it's interesting. It's it will show a different acting sci-fi. Sugar, that is sci-fi. Yeah, that is sci-fi. Yeah, I totally forgot about that as well.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, that's like
30, isn't that movie 30 years old?
Yeah, about that. It's before GoldenEye. So it's 4 years before GoldenEye.
And I give him loads of credit for one of the things I love about Pierce Brosnan, and some Bonds did it, some Bonds managed to pull it off.
GoldenEye.
For me, he's able to keep his body of work so full that I do think Bond when I think of him, but I also think of other movies. I actually think of the other movies and TV shows and things that he appears on. Whereas some actors, when they get into a role like that, that's
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Just think about Mrs. Yeah, that's a really good example. You think, oh yeah, he was a guy, and he wasn't even a bad guy. Mrs. Doubtfire, Mrs. Doubtfire tried to kill him.
You know what?
Hashtag Pepper Wars. But
it's a light bulb moment, right? I had a light bulb moment. So if I'm correct, Andy Serkis is playing Alfred in the new Batman, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, yo, man, they could have given that to Pierce Brosnan.
It's a possibility, yeah.
And he's worked with Patterson before, where he played his father in Remember Me.
I remember
film
that.
where it was like the whole film was about like the relationship between his father and son, and then the end of the film is like, oh, but it happens on 9/11. Like the end of the film is literally 9/11.
Right. Oh wow, that's dark. But yeah, I've seen all those films.
I actually would have actually gone and seen that, but now the ending's gone. That's my fault.
Bruh. No, because you know what it is? It was like I never watched the film, but I saw it was in like a top 10 list of like movies that have like pointless endings or whatever. And it was like they were like the whole film was brilliant up until the end film, where it's like the last moment of the film is like he's got a shit relationship with his dad, and then the end of the film is like, oh, they're gonna reconcile, and then we cut to like Robert Pattinson in like an office building, and he's waiting for his dad to arrive, and then it cuts to like I think it's his little sister who's in school, and then like the teacher writes the date on the chalkboard, and it's like September 11th, 2001, and then it goes back to Robert Pattinson, and it pans out of the building that he's in, and then he's in like the North Tower or like high up in the World Trade Center, and then it pans like quite far back, and then I think like it pans far enough back that you see a plane, and then it cuts to like Pierce Brosnan, who's the dad, who's like stuck in traffic, and then like, you know, it's like he looks up and you hear like a plane going across, and then it ends.
Oof, dark. Dark.
Oh.
I think it just gave me an ulcer, man.
Well, anyway, on that front, yeah, sci-fi. I hope it. I need to see something, and we probably won't see anything for at least another year until things start to. I know certain films have started to start production here again, but yeah, it's gonna be a while, man. Before there's gonna be a big gap at some part of next year, maybe, where there's just like a trickle of films, and we'll know why. So
you know what? All I'm hoping for is that some of them people, like, you know, like Lee Winnell and like maybe Gareth Edwards, like a couple of them, you know, them guys who you can just, they're trusted hand with what they do. Mm-hmm. I'm just hoping that them guys are literally at home and they're just like cooking up some shit. They're just cooking up some wild shit that they're gonna be like, it will take me, you know, it will take me like, you know, 40 days to film this film. It's low budget. It's, you know, set in 2 rooms or whatever. And they just cook up some magical shit. And then it's just like when we have that lull of, oh, well, films weren't being made for you know, 12 weeks or whatever it is, mm-hmm. and nothing was being made. Here are all these small films that got made, like when we opened back up, and they're all brilliant and they're all coming out, and, you know, then we get things like Upgrade and The Invisible Man and freaking, you know, just magic, just pure magic.
Yeah, that's true. Funny thing for this year, the highest grossing film of this year so far is still Bad Boys 3.
Bad Boys.
I think that's hilarious.
Bad boys.
What you gonna do? I just think that's hilarious, just purely because it took so long for it to come back, and it came just at the right point to come back, hit, make more money than it should have made, and it's still the highest grossing film of the world.
You know what? Nah, it's cool. It's cool, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Like, you know, now that you've told me that, I hope nothing else gets released for the rest of the year. give Marcus there.
Martin Lawrence and Will Smith win the year. That sounds good to me.
That sounds excellent.
No matter what,
if you got,
whenever you Google highest grossing film 2020, Bad Boy 3 just sits there. And they'll be like, oh, what about inflation? Nah, it just sits there.
Okay. Move forward.
Okay, so next one is, oh, well, we've got Richard here. This isn't on the itinerary. I figure I'd
Star Trek.
Throw it in now. Star Trek. The next one. What's the skinny? Last time we heard that it's been cancelled. And Quentin Tarantino's done with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Should he do the next Star Trek? Neil.
I saw his mind ticking there. I was like, how should I answer this one? Should I go or this way?
Now, I did not grow up with Star Trek.
Right.
So I'm literally, as we speak, we're in June 2020, and I am currently on, I think, season 3 of The Next Generation. I'm like working my way through the show. So after this, I've got like Voyager and Deep Space Nine, and I'm working my way all the way through. I've seen all the films. So I've seen everything.
The original series.
like every film period, like the motion picture all the way to like Star Trek Beyond.
He's talking about the 60 series. That's a gem. That's
Like,
gold.
I've seen every film from the original motion picture, Wrath of Khan. You know,
but have you seen the 60s series? That's what I'm asking.
Oh yeah, I've seen episodes of it. I haven't seen the whole show, but I've seen like I pick it.
You've seen bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah, so like I made sure I watched the one about Khan,
right.
I watched the first episode, and I watched the pilot and then the first episode, and then I watched about 6 or 7 episodes, like intermittently of that season, and then I immediately was like, I think I spoke to someone and they were like, yeah, fuck that show, go watch Next Generation, and I was like, all right, and first episode, I was like, I think it was like the first episode of Next Generation, I was like, all right, this ain't so bad, it kind of copies what I'd literally just watched, but then they were like, no, just keep watching, and I was like, okay, and watching, and I was like, I fell in love with it. I was like, Picard is a bad man. Picard is up there with some of the greatest badass characters you can. Like an episode I watched I think it was a couple of weeks ago, he's having a negotiation with some guy or with some alien race that they want to blow up a planet, and like he outsmarts them. And then like they're calling him and he just hangs up on them, and then he's just like walking around the bridge of the Enterprise, like dusting his finger across and they're calling, and like I think it's Worf or Riker, and they're like, yeah, you know, Captain, they're calling, and he's just like ignoring it, like, oh yeah, there's a little dust here, yeah, we can get rid of that. And then he's just like, yeah, put them on. And it was just like, it's beautiful. But so it's weird that we discuss these things, because so far every time something new related to Star Trek comes out, it lines up with an episode I just watched. So when Picard came out, I'd literally just watched the episode with Brad Maddox in it, so the whole thing I was like, oh shit, okay, perfect timing. And now we're talking about Tarantino. I would like him to do the film if he got to do what his idea is, right? Which is, like he said, basically make a feature-length version of an episode, but do it in a way that it's connected, but it's not connected. So everything that happens can happen in his film, and no one's gonna lose their shit that it happened in the film. But at the same time, it doesn't suddenly make the entire series look different. And it was like he did he was talking about a very specific episode where the Enterprise basically kind of winds up in like a time shift rift, where they wind up in like an alternate reality where this one mission that happened with a different Enterprise, it wound up going differently in the current universe than it did in the old one. So it meant that, like, you know, where the Klingons have a treaty with Starfleet, that never came to pass.
Are you talking about Mirror World?
No. It's not mirrors.
There is a Mirrorverse inside there, and it's an episode where the Battle of Khitomer, the Enterprise C is destroyed trying to protect the Klingon base. Yeah. And because of that, it actually creates the pathway towards the treaty where the Klingons are no longer fighting the Federation. But by the ship going through a rift in time, the whole universe changes, and it's one of the top. It's probably for many people, and I think even I argue even myself on this one. It's one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever. Not just TNG. One of the best episodes of Star Trek ever.
Oh, he was talking.
And it's an amazing episode. It's so clever because Denise Crosby, who left the show, comes back from that episode, and the second she appears, the fans, people are watching, instantly know something really messed up has happened, because how does a character that died in season 1 all of a sudden?
I mean, because that's the thing. Like, I was watching, like, when I'm watching the show, and again, I'm someone who, like, my Star Trek knowledge is literally basic it's not even knee level, it's like ankle level. I am basic in Star Trek. And like, I was watching the show, and then like the episode where she dies, I didn't even know she was dead until like they were like, oh, she's dead. And then I was like, yeah, you won't bring her back. Like, there's no way that she's gonna die like that. It was like the most like it was the most disrespectful ending to give a character,
Mm.
right? And then it was like, no, she's dead. Here's her funeral. And I was like, you guys, I was like, the disrespect you just gave this character. I was in my head, I was like, she pissed off somebody bad. And then, right? And then it was like, she's dead, she's dead, she's dead. And then here's this episode where she's alive again. And then it was like they did that episode and they gave her the death that is rightly deserved. I feel like it's like she went out she went out better. And it's like, without knowing all the history, I was like, you know what? They knew that they fucked up when they killed her the way that they did.
Well, she actually asked to leave the show. She actually wasn't happy with how her character was kind of being developed. So she said, look, I enjoy it. Because a couple of things that people don't always know about TNG. TNG is the only cast, well, apart from a conference that I saw Marina Sirtis and Gates McFadden arguing at, but they're the only cast that get on. They genuinely are friends, stay in touch and everything. Every other incarnation of Star Trek, there was animosity and there were issues. We all know that Shatner is a dick. We all know that when they made DS9, they didn't gel and certain people didn't talk to one another, and some people thought that Avery Brooks was just a lot. Enterprise, they were all really professional and everything. And Voyager, Jesus, Voyager was a war zone.
No way, I didn't know that.
So funny thing about Voyager is that
there's nothing that can spoil the show because I ain't got there yet.
Right. So diplomatically, what can I say? Okay. I mean, do you know of any characters? Do you know any characters in Voyager?
Yeah, there's a guy called Chakotay.
Yeah.
And Captain Janeway.
Who's the most attractive person in Voyager?
Nah, there's a woman. I don't know if she's in it for a long part of the show, but there's two women. There's two women in the show. One is 7 of 9.
Yeah. So I can tell you what.
Even though I didn't watch Star Trek then, like even I knew of her and I was like, yeah, she's bad. And there's a woman, I think she's like half Klingon or something.
Yeah, I mean, you'll enjoy it because it managed to take the concept of the Federation and just do something really, really new. And I won't go off into it too much because obviously we're going to go back to the Tarantino point. But interesting fact about Voyager is that for the first 2 episodes, Jen was played by a completely different actress. And she just realized that this wasn't for her. She didn't enjoy the hours, and the people that were watching it were realizing, hang on, this isn't that great. So it's almost a bit like the funny coming full circle, because that's exactly what happened in the original series. They had Captain Pike in the pilot, and then Captain Pilot was replaced with William Shatner. So it's really weird because when I found that out, I was like, well, thank goodness, because I can't picture, for each show, I can't picture anyone else to play those captains. But most of all, Patrick Stewart as Picard is just, all-time favorite, absolutely great. But Denise Crosby, it was really quite sweet what they did. They said, come back for this episode. Let's give us the send-off that you want. And then it led to some really fantastic story arcs. So the reason, that idea is an idea that I'm on board with. My favorite Star Trek movie is actually Wrath of Khan. And if you are lucky enough, you get to see it after you've seen the original series Star Trek episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it blows your freaking mind. It's one of those moments in cinema where you're like, oh, you are genuinely shocked because you go into it. Because for those that, I got to warn you guys, spoiler alert, but for those that watch the original series, Khan is left on a deserted island.
Planet.
A deserted planet. Oh man, talking a lot. He's left on a deserted planet with his people, and then years later, because of science stuff and a planet moving where it shouldn't be, which is a bit loose there. But Chakotay, who's on a different ship, finds the people. They accidentally go on that planet.
Yeah, they think it's a different planet.
And then apparently it moves orbit, so they accidentally land.
That's
on
right.
planet number 6 instead of planet number 5.
Orbit.
And it's the only flaw I have in that movie. I'm like, come on, the planet moved, really? But it's Star Trek, so it gets a pass.
You don't know what happens in space, man. You don't know how the solar system works in every system. Different rules, different.
So the thing is, I think the thing about that episode is it's that it builds on the richness of how good that episode was.
Mhm.
So its transition from an episode into a film works really, really well. And I've kind of hoped the Generation films would have done that, and they made references to episodes, and there's brilliant Easter eggs inside it, but even I sometimes miss them. I mean, there's a brilliant moment in Generations where they spent 2 episodes on this artifact, and at the end of Generations, Picard is like going through the ship and everything, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, I found it. Is it this?" And he says, "No," and he literally throws it to the side. And if you get the joke, you will push yourself laughing, because they definitely made that a moment just to say these don't matter, memories matter. And the great thing about that series that I think Discovery is getting to, I don't feel Enterprise ever got there. Voyager got there.
Enterprise didn't get a chance to.
No, it's not about timing. It's not about time. It's how the crew connected with one another. You get the sense of family on Voyager. You get the sense of friendship and family quite a bit in DS9, but also they throw a war in there as well, which I just think is a brilliant thing. I don't want to spoil too much from it. But Generations beautifully has that wonderful moment of, in its first episode, of calling people number one, giving people orders, but the movement all the way to the final episode, there's this sense of family. They are not just friends as cast members, they're friends as characters as well. So there's a brilliant moment where there's an awareness at the end. So to my point, when people kind of come out against Discovery. So that's really, really good. Now, the movies, the rebooted movies, for me, have done an equally good job. There's friendship. The casting is absolutely on point. I really, really love. I like Chris Pine. I like Chris Pine a lot as Kirk. But I think Zachary Quinto is awesome. He absolutely nails it for me in those films. He manages to take on, which I think is actually the most challenging role, to step into the shoes of Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, I would agree.
And if you read the books, the Leonard Nimoy books, you know, the guy just is amazing. And the things that he did to prepare that role, to set a trend, the ideas and inspirations that he brought into the franchise and everything. So, and there's a brilliant thing where Zachary Quinto and Leonard Nimoy got on off screen as well. It was amazing. They did some jokes and gags together. They did an Audi commercial together. Which,
I saw that.
Laughed so hard because they clearly improvised a lot in it. So my point is, I do like the premise of an episode of something, but it's going to be a bit tricky because not as many people watch the original series as should at the moment. The reruns that are on here, the reruns that are on in America, from what I've seen, and I've checked online, and the networks are very much TNG. There's been a reinvigorated massive reinvigorated interest in Voyager, and also a big interest now again in Deep Space Nine. People have been telling me they've been watching Deep Space Nine from the beginning, all over again, and I've grown a better appreciation for it. But here's my thing, Tarantino. My problem with Tarantino is that I have a real problem with how he has this annoying habit of putting his stamp on a story. I know directors are meant to tell a story, but there's just this uncomfortable element where he just doesn't hold true to the principles of certain stories. So, case in point, I really enjoyed watching Once Upon a Time in America recently.
Hollywood.
It's the same thing.
I can assure you it's not.
It really is. Once Upon a Time. I know. I think it just baffled the heck out of me. And I said, rang up Satch, and I was like, "Hang on, Brad Pitt got an Oscar for this?" And that's probably because I just watched Brad Pitt in that weird space movie.
Ad Astra.
Now, let me just make it clear. I watched that movie, and even though I didn't pay any money to watch it, I still want a refund. Because that movie.
Did you help finance it? Did you?
So average. But my point is just that Tarantino has these moments of genius, which is great. He can be incredibly funny, but I really get annoyed sometimes with some of the decisions that he made, and you can't trust him sometimes with his decisions. And that sounds like a really silly thing to say, but the best example I've had throughout watching him is there's a scene in Pulp Fiction. Now, I love Pulp Fiction, but there's a scene in that movie where they take Marvin, I think it's Marvin Jules' place, I think, to get the characters. And I've always said that Tarantino is in that film, right?
Yeah.
And I do not tell me that he wrote that scene in that movie for himself.
Probably.
The scene that he plays in that movie, because the dialogue's all wrong. He can't pull off the dialogue. I've argued with people about this, but I have always believed.
Are you talking about the dead Edward storage?
Yeah. The story.
Yeah. And I kind of find that, that and other lines in it, it just doesn't work. And he's done things in movies sometimes where I'm like, no, you had it. What made you think this was a good idea? What made you, it's just, sometimes it's just so, here's the path, here's Tarantino. And for those of you listening, I just veered off violently to the left. He just doesn't make the best decisions sometimes when he makes his movies. And I just think that there is an approach to the Star Trek universe that every time Sacha has teased me and joked about this, I genuinely get a knot in my stomach as a bona fide Star Trek fan. Like, watching every inclination. And
you do know that he's not writing it, right?
I don't even want him to buy a ticket to the movie. Stay away from my Star Trek.
Okay. Hold on. Can I? There's one thing I want to say. Sorry, Neil. Right now, Star Trek needs something because it's suffering from what it used to. It's suffered from before. Everyone will be interested in a Tarantino Star Trek because it's just so what just seeing Tarantino's name, Tarantino Star Trek. That's anyone wasn't interested in Star Trek will be interested in Star Trek. It will be instant. It'll be instant ticket sales for the franchise. Just for that one film, just to get the ball rolling again, because it definitely needs something other than Justin Lin.
Well, what I was gonna say, right, was like I get what you're saying. Personally, I've never had a problem with the dead storage scene. Right? Like, I'm sorry, I'm honest, right? I mean, other than the fact that he uses that word, I've never had no real issue with the scene.
I don't have a problem with I do have a problem with him using that word, but at the same time, not for that reason.
But even
it's just one example of him sometimes just like, come on, that's not the way that scene's gonna go.
But to me, that scene works perfectly because the way that the characters are, right? John Travolta is as a character, as in the way Vincent Vega is, the way Julius is, the way the Wolf is, the way those characters are. All of them basically relate in a very similar way. They all fit in the same world perfectly. In my opinion, the way that they speak to each other fits within that realm, right? Because he's like, the way he's like, when you came to my house, was there a sign that said that? He's like, no. Like, why? Why?
Let me be clear. Let me just be clear.
Right? And it was like,
just be clear. That's it's the decision making. I'm trying to think of another movie where I remember just feeling really off with like the direction he took it. So let me take the most recent movie. In that, so Sacha and I talked about the fact recently, and I'm picking at hairs because obviously I'm a massive fan of Star Trek, so I know this argument taken apart. So recently, he made Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right.
To the family of, and I've forgotten her name. Margot Robbie plays an actress.
Sharon Tate.
In this movie. Thank you. Sharon Tate's family were on board. They lent jewelry. They said all these lovely things. So that's one late actress and her family's blessings. On the flip side, it just felt like he completely screwed Bruce Lee. And all he needed to do was re-edit the scene in a much smarter way to not get an uproar. And it's just a case of like, oh, this is okay because these people are kind of giving a blessing, but they've not given me our blessing. And I don't care. And I was just really like, come on.
Actually,
I would say
a better job at editing that scene.
Yeah, you would actually find. Let me interject quickly. You'll actually find that the Bruce Lee estate had no problem with that film until after it came out, and they'd read the script. They were fully aware of the context of the sequence, but the scene. But the minute it came out, they decided to rebuttal and change their mind. They had every opportunity, and they were consulted before the movie came out. This was going to happen. Is that the blame of the director when he wrote the scene prior? Asked them, gave them all the blessing in the world, only for when the movie comes out, only for when they have the spotlight now to say whatever they like, to use that spotlight to go, oh, blah, 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 to make them more relevant. I'm just putting it out there because that
I can't argue with that.
They were notified. They were notified. I do agree that a lot of Bruce Lee fans were really pissed.
I mean, I was pissed when I saw but when I saw the film, that was the only sticking point. But then it was explained to me by Sacha and by Ken. Shout out to Ken, that it was
a dream.
It's a dream. It's
his recollection of that would have went down. Yeah.
And as soon as that realization hit that is happening in his head, I couldn't have been more cooler with that idea if I was sitting on top of a fan with an ice cold drink in my hand. It was just
so
because it's like and when you say like it could have been done better, I think we have a habit of, and this is we as in the four of us and the film loving community as a whole, we have this expectation to get answers to questions. Like it's our expectation is that this should be clearly defined. If we didn't understand it, then it should have been done better. And I was like, no, but like I didn't understand this thing, but 100 other people watched it and did understand it perfectly. You know, it's not necessarily it's like I can't remember who said it, but it was there was a filmmaker who said that, you know, he loves if 50 people watch his films, 50 people see it differently. A line of dialogue doesn't change, the camera angles don't change, but how you view the film individually, that is how you interpret it. So with that, I'm like, yeah, like Tarantino, he can do what he wants, you know. Like, I mean, look, the dude killed Hitler, right? Right? I'm like, he good, right? But in regards to him doing Star Trek, I think as well, there's this again is an expectation or a habit or this belief, so to speak, that Quentin Tarantino can only do Quentin Tarantino stuff. Like he can, but we have to remember that the stuff that says the first film by Quentin Tarantino or the ninth film from Quentin Tarantino are not the only things he's done, right? He's done TV. He did an episode of ER. He did an episode of CSI. You know, it's like we expect him that anything he does is going to have his stamp on it because he is a name. So it's like, you know, they're going to be like, you know, it's like looking at Neil Marshall, right? Neil Marshall directed a bunch of episodes for Game of Thrones, right? Usually the better episodes of Game of Thrones, but it's sort of like we never look at it and say, oh, that's got a Neil Marshall stamp on it. It's like, no, he came in, he did his job, he did the job that was required of him, and it just so happened to be better than the episode that came before or the episode that came after. And I think with Tarantino,
all of the last season.
Yeah. And I think with Tarantino, it's just the thing. No. If he was given, if they were like, okay, look, you know what, the world is back to normal. Quentin, you know, look, here's the Star Trek film. It's been written. Have at it. I think he would come up with.
And the thing that's gonna suck is that there is a bit of me that agrees with both you and Joe. The franchise is, for me, in danger. This whole silly politics regarding the most recent movie with payment contracts for Hemsworth and Pine is incredibly infuriating. A fan waiting for the next movie. The last movie I think was actually really good, but I just think they messed up things regarding publicity and certain arcs of the story. But, you know, I mean, I'll give you a case in point. And I said to Sach a couple of months ago, just to step into like the TV world very briefly, if you had told me that there'd be Star Trek Picard series, and there'd be a Mandalorian series based on no one had ever heard of, and Mandalorian would be better, I would have laughed in your face. But that's exactly what's happened, because there's care and attention and a lot of Favreau has just blown it out of the water with that. And I think I said to Sacha, I'm angry because why don't the same people with that level of passion, that level of attention to detail, gone on and made some of the Star Wars movies? But that's kind of what Star Trek universe needs that. And I want the publicity. Do you know who I actually wouldn't mind writing the next movie? Because he is a brilliant Star Trek head, and he accidentally made a better Star Trek series than the last series that was on. Seth MacFarlane. Seth MacFarlane wrote the Orville. And the funny thing about Orville is, when people were asking me when I was watching it, is Star Trek Orville any good? I'd say to them, no. They'd say to me, is it funny? And I would say, no, it's not funny, because it's actually really good. It's actually good. It's actually up there with TNG in certain episodes. There's moral qualms, and every now and again, there'll be a dick joke that comes out of nowhere, and it just, I've had some serious ethical episodes of the Orville.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. This is a guy that should have been steered in that direction.
But can I ask you a question though, right? Do you think that the strength of Mandalorian being how it is coming off the fact that it's a completely original character? It's, so you didn't know. I mean, when we knew that there was going to be a Mandalorian show, I mean, I'm sure that most people thought it was going to be Boba Fett, and then it turned out it's not Boba Fett. It's a completely different character. Here's this character. You don't know anything about this character. Whereas Picard, you've got how many seasons was Next Generation? 7. Right, so you got seven seasons of a show, and then what, 5 movies?
For 3.
Right, I don't know how many movies.
4.
3.
4.
4. So you got 7 seasons, so that's 7 years, and then you got 4 movies with this character. You are invested in this character. So if you don't like what happens in Picard, it's because you've got this long withstanding history with this character. Nobody knew anything about Mandalorian until it came out and they watched it.
No. And I think the thing about Mandalorian is that if it was Boba Fett, the way that they've made it, it would be just as good. But I think the mystery about who the Mandalorian is what adds to it. This whole, where is he from?
Even if it was about Boba Fett,
do we see his face? Yeah.
Even if it was, even if the show was about Boba Fett, the problem is Boba Fett has like 15 minutes screen time in the original trilogy.
If it was Boba Fett, you'd be annoyed by the fact of what's going to happen to him. So you'd be like, oh man, you sold him out like that. That's just wrong. But I mean, so here's the thing. Tarantino's that good on his best day. This movie could work, but I think so many things have to be right, and I'm worried that he would be the final nail in the coffin of the movie franchise. Sacha knows very well. I had to see the Star Trek JJ one twice, because the first time around I was a little bit against it, but I then slept on it and thought to myself, do you know what? This is what the franchise needs to stay alive. You have to start from the beginning, but you can't repeat exactly what happened before. So, because they've tried doing that so many times that, there's Star Trek, it's not part 2. There's a weird spin-off that was meant to come after the original series that never got off the ground. And they've kind of cherry-picked bits of that for multiple series. So either part, either version 2. Yeah. But it's going to be the problem I'm finding at the moment is just too much yo-yoing. I would like to see a bit more decisiveness, because I heard it back in December he wasn't doing it at all. Then I heard it's not going to be R-rated. I don't think it should be R-rated, because I think the movie should really be for a wide audience. And we've already got Discovery, and Discovery fulfills that need that I didn't even know we had. Because I describe. Because I heard because you're not a fan, are you? You're not a fan of Discovery, are you?
I've not seen Discovery, so I couldn't say yes or no to that. But I've seen Picard, and I would say that it's a bit wishy-washy, but it's still, I think, because of Picard and some recurring characters from the older series, it still has that charm that the original series had. When I say the original series, I mean the Next Generation series. But I don't know, the swearing seems very forced. If Tarantino did it, it would feel more organic. And because
I feel like it's a bit organic in Discovery, and I also feel like, so I describe Discovery as like the Star Trek series that grew up with me. The Star Trek series that got its driving license, and it was allowed to drink with me because it's kind of dark. It's like, damn, you ate what now? So
okay, I can imagine what that is.
There is a brilliant brilliant subtext underneath that. They've got some brilliant, reveals in it, and especially considering it came out with so much animosity, people coming out against a show that was before the original Trek, and also a show where there are people that nitpick about what Star Trek, what you can do in the Star Trek universe at certain points in time, which is something Enterprise never really escaped from. Enterprise had to cope with the fact that you can't teleport. I mean, technically you can, but it wasn't available. So, and remember, the whole point of teleporting was only invented in the original series because they wanted to find a cheap way to film them going down to a planet.
Yeah.
In the original series, they didn't want to build a shuttle and have them filmed getting into a shuttle and going down to the planet. So they thought, let's just teleport them onto the thing. Oh, what, your name, Agent? What? Lieutenant? What? And you wear the red top and you'll die. So it's kind of there's lots of funny innovations to solve all these problems. So I think the series needs that gravitas, and I just wish JJ could do it, but it's starting to feel also like JJ Abrams can't do every franchise. He can't save every universe.
Or you clearly can't.
Every galaxy or far
away. He did not save Star Wars.
Initially, he did. Initially. Look, that's a whole nother conversation. But
whole other can of worms.
Point
is, I think here's the thing: Star Trek needs care and attention. Did you watch the clip of Tarantino talking about it, Richard?
I watched a clip a couple of weeks ago. Is it a recent clip or a past one?
It's a past one where he was on a podcast, and he was asked about Star Wars, and then he shifted into go, no, I was never into Star Wars. I was a Star Trek guy. And then he said, more particularly Captain Kirk Star Trek. He was his guy and stuff. And this was the interview that sparked the whole conversation. What you get from that interview is that, one, he has a huge understanding for that original series because he loves that original series. Two, he listed 2 or 3 episodes that if he was to do it, it would have to be these 3 episodes. This is why. And he said, basically, the reason why Star Trek looked as cheap as it did is because, one, it was a sci-fi show off the time, and the difference between Star Trek was that those episodes were so well written that you could have taken any one of those episodes, make it into a feature, but you just needed to give it the budget that it required. And next minute, J.J. Abrams on the phone going, do you want to do the next Star Trek? Why this would be a big deal is because, well, all the cast, they're out of contract. And if they were to do another one, they all need to be pay rise, basically, because that's the deal. That is literally how it works. When you do a sequel, that you get paid more to come back when you're out of contract, or they just recast and hire brand new actors, or they work out something else. Now, there's something else, and Tarantino. Every movie star and actor on the planet wants to be in this guy's films. It's like a badge of honor, more or less. I could see the whole cast taking a pay cut just to say they've been and worked with Quentin Tarantino, because he is a Martin Scorsese, because he is. I wouldn't even put Ridley Scott into that category, to be quite honest, because
it's a different echelon.
Yeah, exactly. But there are certain directors where people fight tooth and nails to be on that movie. George Lucas used to be up there because before he went and did The Phantom Menace, Liam Neeson and Samuel L. Jackson were like, we need to work with George Lucas because he's the future, bro. That was literally a quote from Liam Neeson. Not bro, but yeah, literally like, and this might also add to it. Liam Neeson signed onto The Phantom Menace without reading a single word of dialogue or a script. He was like, yeah, I'm in. Says a lot. But but point being is Quentin Tarantino is that echelon of director, and yeah, it's I think it would work for Star Trek, because if you got some next director, everyone's like, fuck you, pay me. Unless Scorsese comes down and decides he wants to do one, in which case I expect Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci in that one as Klingons.
Yeah, for instance, just the last thing I'll say on it, if you had Christopher Nolan said, yeah, I want to do a Star Trek film, that would draw people in instantly. Instantly. And if that's the way he goes into space again.
No, I'm laughing because I can imagine him like, I really want to do a Star Trek film, and somebody just be like, nah, motherfucker, I saw Interstellar. You ain't doing shit.
Well, I mean, I think what Interstellar did fits more in with Star Trek. What Star Trek would do in the olden, like in the like the Wrath of Khan is in that same array in terms of because it's a warship film. It's a fog of war film. Wrath of Khan in most ways. But it's very poetic. I can see Kenneth Branagh directing that film as well. Yeah, I think
the one thing I think I was going to say, the one thing I think we can all agree on, and it's like, I have to. It's just the fact. Next movie needs something big. Next movie needs something big. There's been two. Firstly, they also have to get over the sad, untimely death of Anton Yelchin.
Yeah.
That role's going to need to be recast.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's been public knowledge
does he need to be recast? Didn't one of the movies his character got promoted and
he needs to be in the film. No, he needs to be in the film. He needs to be in the film.
I think he needs to be in the film, and I can't see them finding a way to. They could write him out, but I just don't think it's.
You need Chekhov. You need Chekhov in the film.
Chekhov on the bridge, unless they do, which they did with Part 2, which is recast him and have him on another ship like Wrath of Khan.
Mm-hmm.
And because that was the whole point. The whole point of the series into the films is, particularly after the first film, because I'm pretty sure we've all seen the Kevin Smith analysis of Star Trek.
Yeah, the motion picture.
Which is spot on. Motion picture with dun, 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 dun,
yeah.
The whole
for 8 hours.
It's just Neil, have you seen the original motion picture?
Yes.
Did you feel like the ship
dragged.
Moved in reverse rather than warp speed? Because that film is long,
you know what I think,
boring, slow.
But it's this way. I've been explaining to people like Star Trek fans for a while, right? Because I never watched it. I went in with a completely clean slate. I didn't know anything about any politics, about any love or hate or anything. I just literally, I think it was the J.J. Abrams films were coming out, and I was like, let me just watch all of them, because I think I did the same thing with the James Bond films. I think I was like, I'd seen a bunch of them, but not all of them. So I was like, I'm gonna watch every Bond film in the run up to, I think it was Spectre.
Spectre. Okay.
It was the run up to Spectre, so I just watched every Bond film, and it's like having that clean slate. It was fine, but when I sat there and watched the first film, in my head, I was like, yeah, I might not make it to Wrath of Khan, boy. Because I was like, there were moments in that film, and it's the only one where I can say it happened. There were moments in that film where I got up and did stuff and came back, and it was like the ship was in the same place. It was like the film knew I was going to the toilet and just itself.
Yeah. The bit that was a slow for me in that film.
Absolutely. They just got carried.
We do have to
I
move on because
forget
this is
what
going
the
to end up being
premise.
3 hours.
Oh, dear.
Just to avoid the podcast being super long. We'll keep it. We'll move on. Sorry to
To be
cut it
continued.
short. Yeah, to be continued. Okay, so the next topic is, and I've lost the topics here. Help me out here, Serge. This is
Okay. Next topic is director Lee Cronin is to direct the new Evil Dead film being produced by original creator Sam Raimi and who's the guy that plays Ash?
Bruce Campbell.
Bruce Campbell. There we go.
He's producing it or he's in it?
Producing, but then you never know. Stranger things have happened. We saw the last remake. So it's another remake, ish, because we all know what happened with the last one. So if you haven't seen the previous remake, it was a similar film, but Ash wasn't in it. Well,
technically he wasn't in it.
Technically he was. But it was brand new characters going to the house and messed up stuff happens. And we know the story of Evil Dead, so why repeat it? This is another take on the classic tale with a brand new cast and a brand new set of characters. So it is kind of a sequel, sidequel, whatever, but they're building that universe. Why? Because Sam Raimi still wants to make another Evil Dead movie that continues off not just the third film, but the television series Ash versus the Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And the only way to rejuvenate this franchise for modern day fans is to do a new iteration of the movie by doing it this way. He doesn't want to direct this new cast of characters, so he's letting someone that's done a film before, like a new director, have their own take on the film, and that way, hopefully, if it's successful, he can segue and boom, do another Evil Dead with Bruce Campbell as the lead, and probably cameo characters from this one. But that's the general grand master plan. Thoughts on another iteration on the Evil Dead?
After put it this like,
did you watch the TV show, by the way?
I haven't finished it.
Oh, okay.
But my thing is this, right? So
that was what, by the way, that TV show was what he spent his Spider-Man money on.
Oh, okay.
No, quite literally, he made the 3 Spider-Man movies, got paid mega bucks, and then did some Oz film for Disney, but the Spider-Man films, and he just went back to Evil Dead and did a TV show for quite a few years with Bruce Campbell.
Yeah. I think for me, I think this brings up the kind of the problem of nostalgia, which is that obviously directors, writers, they are creative people, and when you create something and then it kind of seeps through your fingers and it, like, you create it. I think it was somebody compared it to a child, and they were like, you nurture this child through its infancy, and then it becomes a teenager and it starts to do its own thing, and it becomes an adult and it goes off to do its own thing, and you kind of have no say with it anymore.
Sounds like Lucas. Sounds like Lucas would have said that. George Lucas.
But it's that thing of, you get to this point where really and truly you're just like, you start to get upset with some of their life decisions. And I think that probably was going on with
Evil Dead.
Evil Dead is because, to be honest, like, I've seen Evil Dead, I've seen Evil Dead 2, and I've seen Army of Darkness, and they were all 3 brilliant films, absolutely brilliant. No issues with them whatsoever. Then I saw the Evil Dead, the remake, and I loved it. But one of the things I loved about it was it wasn't the Evil Dead that I remember. It wasn't the Ash Williams, and it's like groovy, and it wasn't that.
That's what this movie is going to be like. It's going to be
like I enjoyed that it was a different take on it.
Yeah.
It was more a reimagining than a remake.
Yeah,
and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The TV show, I watched I think I watched maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and I enjoyed it because I enjoyed the films. But I think it's sort of like, it becomes that nostalgic thing where it's like, if you never watched the Evil Dead, the original films, the original trilogy of films, how much love and appreciation and affection are you going to have for Ash versus the Evil Dead? And then if you're going to make a new film to rejuvenate that style of things, is that the humor that is going to capture people? Is that going to draw a thing? Because to me, the best thing that I'd seen Evil Dead after the 3 films was the comic book Ash. It was like Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. That blew my head off my shoulders. That was beautiful. But that, like, obviously that's not going to be a film. So it's just like, meh.
Well, in my regards to that, I think that the TV show is very fan orientated.
It's like fan service.
Yeah, if you, I mean, there's some space for, because there's new characters. It leaves, because those characters are experiencing that for the first time. You kind of get drawn. Okay, so this is what's happening. So you get reintroduced to a degree, but there's a lot more. That's okay. Well, this, I'm giving you this much to understand what's going on, but if you don't know what's going on beyond that, it's a fan thing. So I haven't seen season 2 or 3 yet, but I got to the end of season 1 where Lucy Lawless was introduced, and that was interesting. That was interesting. In terms of the new films, I mean, if they make it low budget enough and it makes its money back, I can't see any problem with it. And if you're getting returning characters and the director and the production artists that were involved, I think you can make something pretty good with that. I don't know if is he going to be building like a universe? Like, are they joining all of everything that from the past?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the plan. That was the plan the first time round with the first film,
right?
But he got lured back into contracts with other movies and stuff, so
Right.
it went on the back burner.
Mhm.
And then when the opportunity presented itself to do the TV show, he jumped at the chance because
Right.
it was a chance to expand the universe in ways that the movie couldn't.
Mhm.
But now, because the show's been cancelled, obviously, while
I
making
thought it
that
ended.
show,
I thought it just ended.
I think it ended, but I think it was going to get cancelled anyway. So they came up with an ending for the show,
Right,
but they've
right.
still got loads of materials and where they wanted to take the characters and stuff like that.
I see.
Because you got to understand, with The Evil Dead, that's how Bruce Campbell got famous. So Bruce Campbell was a producer along with Sam Raimi and Sam Raimi's brother, who's in all of his films, including Spider-Man. He's the assistant to Joe Jameson that comes up with like crazy names and stuff. Yeah. So they're just basically trying to make the films that they did since they were kids, basically, and carry on the party. So it's like me if I was still making little guys at 60. Hopefully that's not the point, but
if you're making money from it, I don't think there's any
true
requisite to what you do or what you don't do, as long as it's doing something for you. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I think, yeah. You haven't said anything, Richard.
Yeah, it's not actually a franchise I've been a big fan of or watched. I saw the film years ago. I was just going online just to remind myself when it came out, and I couldn't believe it.
Oh, right.
1980. So just absolutely one, and we're still talking about this film. I mean, I think the films are great, and when I kind of was like, when we were talking about, going through our agenda for what we're going to discuss, it's one of those things where I'm like, since the originals are so iconic, and then you've got this great TV series. On one hand, I'm like, why do we need to remake or make sequels or keep this story going? But the cult following is clearly there and everything. And then while looking at the things that Sam Raimi's done over the years, I've actually forgotten that I've really enjoyed certain things that he's made without even knowing he was involved. I forgot he was an exec producer on the Spartacus TV series.
Oh, right.
And there, there's been creative input and things like that, and he's worked on things like Xena, and he's working on apparently a Xena reboot, which they said
that'd be interesting.
That's back on again. But I think that the argument for doing it is that you're introducing a new generation to something, but I just hope they don't change too much, because there are things about the originals that leave them exactly the same. I think sometimes because they might be low res and cheaply done, the studio loves it, and I think the fans love it. Whereas if you throw in a bunch of CG, it's just going to ruin the tradition, for lack of a better word. So,
yeah, well, this is what I mean. I don't think Sam Raimi would go to that lengths to. I think he'll keep it as physical. These days, anything you watch has an element of visual effects in it, even if it's a war or a. But there's no. I don't think anything goes through post production now without a visual effects artist touching it. That's just the world we live in now. It's.
I wish the visual effects artists were hired to get rid of that Starbucks cut on Game of Thrones.
It was Starbucks.
Yeah, there's a Starbucks.
Do you know what that is? I'll tell you now. That's because there's a pipeline in.
Yeah, that's the fault of the script supervisors that was there on the day.
Sure.
Should have removed the cut.
Yeah, but
should have removed the cut. Continuity.
Sure. That's fine.
I feel like that thing with the whole coffee cup. I think what that was they knew what was coming in the next things, and they were like, "Oh, fuck this shit up right now." They were just like, "Oh, up down right here," and they were like, "Oh,
Not to come off the topic too quickly, but I never got to comment on this on earlier podcasts. The problem with that season is that coffee cup sums up the problem with that entire season. Not enough attention to detail, and they just didn't care enough, and it just felt like they rushed everything. If they'd taken their time, someone would have noticed that.
Disagree.
If they'd taken their time, it just felt like they were like, let's make the final season this quickly, and let's move on and get our payday on our next project. That's what the whole season feels like.
No, I disagree, man. Again, not to keep it on TV for too long, but it took them 2 years to do all of that, and that was.
Then take 3, god damn it.
I think that's mostly to do with J.R. Martin. He gave them, look, this is what happens at the end. Work it out, and that's it, because he had written nothing. And he doesn't make notes for the next books he's writing. These guys got to Star Wars territory or George Lucas territory really quickly, and so you guys wrote this. You guys suck. I wouldn't like to be in their shoes, writing a show that became popular overnight. Having all this material where we got this, we don't got this. What do we do? We're in the dark here. I give them leeway.
Almost looks like they were exposed at the end.
I wouldn't say exposed.
No, I mean,
no, because you were invested for 8 seasons? How many seasons was it?
8.
8.
No,
So 7 seasons. If
8.
they were that bad, you would
8.
never have been invested in 7 seasons, regardless of the material that was given to them, because they still had to adapt the material. Either way, that takes a lot of skill. To throw them under the bus because it didn't go the way people wanted, that's a bit harsh on them. They had a big feat. The guy weren't go nowhere fast with writing his novel. He had 7 years to finish it, and he still ain't done. I'll tell you one thing, J.J. R. Martin.
Tell you what's going to be hilarious
when that book comes out. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's looked at that show and go, "Well, I guess they didn't like that."
Do you know what?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I always I'm probably the only person who does it. I look at Game of Thrones as the bad version of what happened with the Harry Potter films. Because everybody's like, you forget, the Harry Potter films were coming out at the same time where some of the books were coming out. I think it's like film I think it's like the last book, like basically when they were making the films, they still having to talk to J.K. Rowling about books, right?
Yeah.
They were talking to her about the books, and she was saying, she was like, well, look, this is what's going to happen with this character. This is what's going to happen with this. And, you know, it was to the point where they were like, oh, can we lose this character? And they were, no, you're going to need that character. That character is important in the end. Bless you.
Thank you.
You know, it was like, oh, this character is important when we get to the end. So no, you can't lose them. Whereas, so it was like, you're basically, you know, you're laying down the track as the train's coming in. But with the Harry Potter stuff, it was like, okay, she knew where she was going to take those stories.
Mm-hmm.
So she was able to give them clear instructions and clear insight of where it's going to go. And also, it's a thing of once, if you know where the story is supposed to go, you can make edits to it that better suit your purpose. With Game of Thrones, they got to season 6. Like, if there's 7 seasons, they got to season 6 with groundwork. They had all the books. They could literally read, they could have someone read a book, or they could read it themselves, make all the notes they wanted to make, and then be like, this is what's coming out. This is what it is. The very final season, come on now. When was that? 2 years ago? A year ago?
A year ago.
And a year ago.
It was 1 year ago. Because the anniversary was anniversary of the last episode was last week.
Yeah.
And we still don't have the book that was supposed to be that it's based on.
There's 2 more books till the end.
Exactly, right? 2 more books till the end. And I'm like, homie ain't done it. So, like,
who are the guys? Isn't it Benioff and Weiss?
So it's like, for me, as bad as it sounds, anyone who's really, really unhappy with Game of Thrones, I'm like, don't pin your displeasure on the guys who made the show. Base your displeasure on the dude who never finished the fucking story to begin with. Because it's not like, you know, like Lord of the Rings, and it was like the Silver Marillion. I can't remember.
Silmarillion.
Silmarillion, thank you, right? It's not like, you know, where that was coming out and you know, he was working on other stuff to do with Middle Earth and he dies. And then you're like, okay, well, now your son's...
I got to say, I think...
it notes.
I'm agreeing with Sacha's analogy, because I think it's Benioff and Weiss, come the day those books come out, they're going to be queuing outside of Waterstones on Oxford Street, like 4 in the morning, waiting to see how badly they've been screwed by
you know, they're blatantly like, them books will be coming, like, them books will be finished and they'll probably get it before
quick to the last page,
right? And they'll be reading it and they'll be like, you fucked us. And I can imagine when books come out, if the books are better than the show ending and like everyone like, you guys did shit, they're going to be like, no, we're going to release all the emails that prove that he fucked us.
I hinted at someone that I might rewatch them, and they were like, "No, it's too soon."
I've rewatched them all. I'm on the episode where they're at Winterfell now. The Night King's at Winterfell now, so I'm back up to that point, and I have a bigger appreciation for what they're doing, what they did with that. Mm-hmm. I still think the Night King should have won the whole thing. I still think the Night King should have won the whole thing, but
he should to the Iron Throne and just sat down.
Yeah, that would be the last shot. If I did it, that would be the last shot. Him looking at the throne, sitting down, and then you see his eyes go to black. Done.
Yeah,
that's Game of Thrones. Boom.
just merge it, like it's like with a Soprano style ending. Joker. Yep. Oh dear.
It's dark, but I mean, the Night King. Just the way everyone was acting. I mean, it's very. Everything that's happening in Game of Thrones is very counter what's happening on actual Earth, or in the real world, and just to me, if you had this threat that is coming, no, everyone's ignoring it. Yeah, we'll deal with it later. But I've got to kill that guy first, and then this thing just, okay, well, all you guys are dead now. I've won, and that's really, that's how I see it. Would have seen it working. The only one I would have left alive is Bronn. He would have got away somehow, and that's the loose thread to the whole thing. Anyway, that's enough of maybes or what ifs. That's the way I would have done it. But what were we talking about? What was the actual topic? I can't even remember now. And Sacha's gone away.
Sacha's moved away just at that opportune moment.
It was
Okay.
like
Evil Dead.
Yes, Evil Dead. Okay, I'll end this topic now. In terms of Evil Dead, again, it's the same problem I think with every film. Will cinemas open up again in the way they were? There's a lot driving on what type of film it's going to be in the coming months and year, so to speak, because certain cinemas will close down, certain buyouts may have happened, some cinemas may not open again, and so I think that's the less cinemas that are open, the less revenue there is to make in theatre. So one of two things are going to happen. So I think production on any film at the moment is like ipso facto. It probably will happen, but it might not happen. So yeah, wait and see is what I say.
Yeah.
Don't you think so, Sach? Okay, so
He rushes back.
Sach, we just wrapped on talking about Evil Dead. Is there anything more you want to say on it?
No, that's it.
Okay,
That's it.
we'll go for the last one then, and that's Viggo Mortensen and Peter Farrelly. Viggo Mortensen. Okay, so I didn't read this whole thing. Okay, so is Viggo Mortensen going to be working with Peter Farrelly?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Again.
Okay. So based on the novel of the Vietnam War. So okay, so Peter Farrelly is working on a new film based on the Vietnam War, novel based on the Vietnam War, and again with Viggo Mortensen, or as we know him as who is he in Lord of the Rings?
Aragorn.
Aragorn. I can't believe I forgot that. Yeah, it's an interesting move for the Farleys. They've just like, do you know what? We can't do comedy anymore, so we're going to go super serious, and it seems to be working for them. Well, at least one of the brothers, anyway. So, I haven't seen Green Book yet.
It's
but
really good. Really,
yes,
really good.
so I heard, and when I eventually get to see it, I'll let you know. In terms of what they're doing, how much more can be said about Vietnam?
Loads.
On Spike Lee.
Yeah.
Just dropped the 5
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm going to watch that I've got to squeeze that in with everything else, but that's high on my list at the moment.
To be honest, there's with any war, there's loads of stories that you could do. It's just about how you do it, from what angle and whatnot. Spike Lee's just proved that just now with The Fried Bloods, coming in at another angle that hasn't been shown in the cinema before. I'd quite like to see one based on a Vietnamese point of view, and to show how the war was kickstarted off by the French in the first place. I mean, coming back to stuff that's going on today in terms of like the whole Black Lives Matters movements and stuff, if you treat a race of people and dehumanize them, eventually they're going to like rebel. And that's exactly what happened in Vietnam.
Absolutely.
Because in Vietnam,
Absolutely.
the French came over, they pillaged the whole country. They tried to make it look like France. They treated them like subhumans and servants and stuff. And then they act all surprised that there was a rebellion. And then then they turned around to America and said, "Hey, can you come back us up?" And America was like, "Fuck no." And then they got dragged into it anyway, and then they fucked up big on that. So, you know, there's stories there which I'm sure you've never heard of or seen on the silver screen, but I'd quite like to see that version.
Again, it was just a comment to drive a conversation, which it
Sorry,
clearly
but
did.
like with but with any historical matter, I think there are loads of stories to be told, and that's why we'll keep getting loads of stories on subjects like Vietnam, World War II, you know, stuff. A really cool thing was Ryan Coolidge has a dream project. Ryan
Ron
Coogler?
Coogler,
Ryan
yeah.
Coogler. He has a dream project to do a movie on what's it? I don't know.
Black Panther
because
2.
I haven't got the material in front of me, but like
Mhm.
some famous African king or something.
Black Panther 2.
No, not Black Panther.
Oh,
It was
I'm joking.
unrelated to Black Panther, but I mean, he wanted to do some historical biopic, and I think that's exactly why he's sticking with the Marvel movies right now. Because once he's done with his Black Panther trilogy, he's going to do some historical stuff that no one's ever seen before, and it's going to be awesome. So
Yeah, he's doing this. He's gone the Soderbergh route with working with Disney.
Yeah.
Is it one for me? I'll do one for me. I do one for you. One for me. One for you. One for you. One for you. And
Yeah.
I like that the way that. Well, I like the way that Soderbergh manages to do it all the time. And it looks like a few other directors have taken that stance on doing a film for one over the other.
That's usually how it works most of the time. Scott, his whole career has been doing that.
I
Same
feel like
with
that's the best way it should go, because I mean, you get like
Fincher tried to do that. It didn't work out for him. It did not work out for him at all.
No.
But no, I mean, like, you look at it from the point of view. I look at Christopher Nolan, right? He did Batman Begins. He went off and did something else, and they were like, "Yo, we want that Dark Knight, bro."
Yeah.
And then okay, I give you the Dark Knight, but you gonna give me Inception? And they were like,
No, they thought Inception was gonna blow. Was gonna tank. They thought Inception was gonna tank.
Yeah, but even if they thought it was gonna tank, it was still the thing of like, you know, he was like, look, even if the film's shit, you gonna get the Dark Knight out of it.
Yeah. They thought that about the Matrix as well. They thought the Matrix was gonna tank, so we're gonna let these guys do what the hell they want, because the technology there for the bullet time thing. They showed them the bullet time. No, they did Bound, and then they showed them they mesmerized Warner Brothers with bullet time. Hey, look at this! Now give us some money. And they got the money and said, do what you want.
I'm sure you've all seen, on that point, I'm sure you've all seen Will Smith in the last couple of months has dropped a video on YouTube.
Oh,
where
yeah?
He talks about how they pitched that movie to him.
Well, right, Matrix 4.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. He talks about the fact that he just come off of a sci-fi movie. He didn't want to do it. And then these two guys who sounded like stoners pitched the movie to him, and he passed on it. And of course, that was the direction of Wild Wild West, and and the rest is history. But I think the thing about Vietnam War movies is that there was recently a thing where I was listening to a podcast about somebody talking about their father as a veteran in the Second World War, and another podcast where someone talked about the Vietnam War, about stories that were never discussed. These guys were traumatized. Soldiers back during the First World War, Second World War, Vietnam War, came back, and they dealt with PTSD before we even knew what PTSD was, and they learned about their day-to-day lives. And then they had a strange relationship with their kids because they were traumatized and they couldn't talk about what they've been through. So what we're finding is that every now and again you get these gems where someone has said, you know, this story, I'm transferring my dad's story to a book. I don't know who enough about the book, but just the whole premise of these stories are being told now as people have a greater understanding, and then they're actually finding a way to put on the screen. You know, there are a lot of Vietnam movie stories that I just feel like don't go deep enough. They gloss over exactly what Sacha was saying. They gloss over the true nature of the warfare over there, and it was a disaster. It was a disaster for everyone involved. And then the people went over there ill-equipped. They went over there and had very little comfort when they got back. I watched Jarhead the other day.
Right.
Which I'd forgotten. I'd forgotten about that movie, and I watched it the other day. It was actually a much better performance by all the cast than I even knew. I watched it a second time. Because that's based on a book, I feel like there's a stronger connection between the lead character and the author.
It's more,
and it just translates better on screen.
It's based on more on a more recent event and a better understanding of how soldiers come out of that. So I'm guessing there's that's why there's a better connection. Maybe maybe I could be wrong, but looking at, do you remember that film with Michael J. Fox? And it was about Vietnam, and his commanding officer was just a douche, and he was just raping people. God, what was it? And Sean Penn was in it as well. Does anyone remember that film?
I can visualize the film.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember what it's called.
I remember watching that film. I can't remember the name of the film, but I remember watching it, and I remember being quite horrified by what I was seeing, because you were just seeing depictions of rape with Michael J. Fox, who I had just seen in Back to the Future, and watching that.
Guy. He's not freaking.
Yeah,
Is it Casualties of War?
I think so. Yeah. And that film changed my perception on. I saw that film years ago when I was a teenager, but I just remember it leaving a effect on me. And if that's, and I don't even think that story is as deep as what happened over there. But if that's half what happened, then wow, that's nuts. It's absolutely insane to what these guys had to, coming back to a country of stability and trying to go for your normal day life. That's gotta screw you up in some way. And just having the discussion about, or as you said, Sach, the stories, you can keep telling stories over and over, even if they're not the same or similar. There'll be more bearing on what happened and what the politics were and how it affected people, how it affected the country, how it affected the countries involved in the war. It's again, I think if we were there and we saw what really happened and tried to put it on screens, that no, we can't put this to film.
Well, we know what happened with Coppola with Apocalypse Now. He almost went insane, and they did go there.
Yeah,
they actually went there.
Yeah,
they actually freaking went there. And how, if George Lucas had directed it, I don't even think George Lucas would have lived. So, because it was his damn idea.
Yeah. I remember.
It was actually his idea. He was like, "Yeah, we're just going to go over there. And we're just going to direct." And it's like,
yeah,
I think the way when we discussing about like if you actually depict what really happens, it's the thing of really and truly it's like it's any kind of major situation like that. Like if they depicted slavery the way it really happens, then it was like like shit like 12 Years a Slave.
Oh,
like
that's a hard film to watch.
It's light work in comparison to what really happens. It's like when you think that's not the tip of the iceberg, that's the tip of the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And it's the same as like if you look at any war really, like whether it's freaking the war in Afghanistan, the Gulf War I, Gulf War II. If we looked at like the shit that's going on with Russia annexing part of the Ukraine, any kind of situation like that, you can't put that on film the way it really is, because if you do, then it eats at your sensibility, because it's like, you know what, like there's a line in Revenge of the Sith, and it's in the opening crawl where it says there are heroes on both sides, or there are heroes and villains on both sides. And every war has that, because you look at it, it's like, even if you look at something like World War II, I mean, any of you guys seen Fury?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? And you see, like, when they get to the village, I think it is.
With a tank. Because they get to the village and there's... Sorry, carry on, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, they get to the village and they wind up like occupying the little village or whatever, and they're in the house with like a woman and her mother, I think it is.
Yeah.
and it's like the woman makes eggs in the morning, and it's just funny because the John Branch, I think his name is, the guy who plays Punisher, he like picks up the egg and he licks it and puts it down back on the plate, but he does it in a way of like where he kind of insinuates that he might basically try and rape this girl, and everyone's like, nah, leave the girl alone kind of thing. And he's like, oh, don't worry, she'll be fine. And it's the thing of, you guys are painted as the heroes of this, but that doesn't mean that everything you did was heroic. So in any kind of situation like that, where it's like, oh, we're gonna make something to do with the Vietnam War, you can't, like, if it's a war, not everything that everyone does is heroic.
Yeah, absolutely, well said. I've no more to add to that. Anyone else got anything to say about the film in general? Really?
I'll see it when it comes out.
yeah, if it comes out. Okay, well, guys, we've gone past the 3-hour mark, so if we literally beat the 100th episode in terms of length, and there's less of us. So unless anything has anyone to add to anything, or even wants anything to say, is everyone good?
Good.
Richard?
Yeah, good. Really pleased to take part again. Sorry that I rambled on for ages.
No, that's the whole point of the podcast, man. That's why I liked it to be free form. It just say what you want to say, and we'll bring it back around to some relevance of what we're talking about. So yeah, no worries. Okay, well, I'll end it here. Thanks for coming on, Neil, Richard, Sach.
Always happy to be here, man.
Yeah, good to have you on once again, Richard. It's good to have your insight, and
thank you,
in a very elegant manner, as always. Yeah, do you want to plug anything? Does anyone want to plug anything? Anything to plug? Anything to sell? No?
No.
No, everyone's good. Okay, well, I'm
still waiting for my corporate sponsorship.
Well, this is for my corporate sponsorship. We're sponsored by Squarespace, as Leo said, which we are not. All right, then I'll just cut it there, and I'll put all your contact details in the description on YouTube and SoundCloud and iTunes as usual. Thanks, guys, again. And this is the Zedos Game podcast signing out, and we are out. Go on, do it. Come on.
I am the man that killed Jamie Lannister.